BBC Indonesia TV, Master of Ceremony and also moderator for today's event. And I'm very delighted and very excited to be hosting our event today. And before we start, ladies and gentlemen, let me greet our honorable guests and also speakers for today's event. First, we have the honorable Vice Chairman of the Board of Commissioners of the Financial Service Authority, Mrs. Nuhaida, Deputy Commissioner of OJK Institute and Digital Financial, Mr. Imanja, our speaker, Dr. Robert Bong, our book reviewers, Mrs. Angela Utama and Mr. Agus Sugiarto, OJK's Board Deputy, OJK's Head of Departments, OJK's Directors and other Insan OJK Commissioners, and last but not least, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the book review event with the team Blue Ocean Strategy, a guide and strategy for companies, organizations to be free from fierce competition and achieve success by Chan Kim and also Renée Mauborgne. And ladies and gentlemen, before we begin this event, allow me to inform you several guidelines during this event. First, you may type your question via the Q&A feature with the format name, question, affiliation, and who your question is addressed for. And all the questions can be submitted in either English or in Bahasa Indonesia. And let me inform you as well that we also provide an interpretive feature. Please choose the language that you desire and also that you want. And ladies and gentlemen, let me inform you also that currently there are 1,207 participants joining this book review, and the majority comes from the banking sector, the government sector, with around 45%, the economics 2%, the non-bank financial industry 25%, the capital market sector with around 6%, OJK with 5%, and others with 10%. So we thank you very much for your participation today. And once again, before we begin, allow me to present the agenda for today's event. First, we will have the opening remarks by the Vice Chairman of the Board of Commissioners of the Financial Service Authority, or OJK, followed by a plenary session by our speakers. And next, we will also hear the plenary speech by our speakers, followed by the book review sessions. And afterwards, we will have a Q&A session with our speakers. And last but not least, the closing remarks by the Deputy Commissioner of OJK Institute. And distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are now opening today's event with the welcoming remarks by the Vice Chairman of the Board of Commissioners of the Financial Service Authority, or OJK. Please welcome Mrs. Nuhaida. The stage is yours, Mrs. Nuhaida.
Thank you. Distinguished speakers and discussants, Dr. Robert Bong, CEO of Blue Ocean Global Network, as a speaker for today's event, and Ms. Angela Utama, co-founders of PT Gradana Teknologi Indonesia, and all other speakers that will speak today and share their view today in our event. And of course, all speaker and our virtual audience. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to invite you to express our gratitude to God Almighty, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, since only by His blessing and willing we could gather on this very prominent occasion. OJK Institute Book Review, Blue Ocean Strategy by Chan Kim and Renée Mauborgne. The book that we will review this time is fascinating and relevant to the problems of business practitioners, ranging from large companies or organizations to micro, small, and medium enterprises, both for incumbents and the newcomers, especially in today's current conditions when the world is facing digital disruptions and still struggling with the pandemic. I would like to take this opportunity to extend my appreciation to the speakers as well as to discussants that have been willing to share their insights and also their views, and hope that we would get more benefits from this book. Participants, ladies and gentlemen, as we often hear, one of the biggest challenges faced by companies or organizations is related to the fierce competition in the business world or maybe in organizations world, which make it difficult for companies or organizations to gain and sustain their positive performance. This problem may arise due to companies or organizations' tendencies to start businesses and enter the market that is already crowded with many competitors. One aspect normally considered by those entities was that this market is potentially bringing profits, but without considering that it will harm their sustainability in the long term. And at the next stage, their behavior often creates a competitive failure for companies or organizations, making them suffer financial losses. Those persisting in this behavior will also threaten economic stability and financial system stability in a country. Realizing the impacts of this phenomenon, I perceive that companies or organizations need to mitigate this risk, change the old habits, and shift to a new and innovative mindset. Even though it is not easy, it could be difficult, companies or organizations must instill a breakthrough away from old trends and create trends in new markets so that they can overcome the competition or they don't have to face competition or fierce competition. In this case, companies or organizations must be balanced in creating a comprehensive strategy and continuously innovating as a strategy to create new markets to survive and to succeed in these markets. Ladies and gentlemen, the Blue Ocean Strategy, this book that we will discuss today, is one of the keys to these problems. This book provided guidelines and strategies for companies or organizations to be free from fierce competition, create new markets, and be successful in the markets. Implementing the strategy in this book obviously will assist companies or organizations to improve their business performance and financial conditions, and such will positively affect the financial system stability. Indeed, OJK, as mandated by the law, puts high concerns to the financial system stability, and therefore, in this rationale, OJK needs to put itself as a leading initiator to review and to discuss this book with stakeholders in the financial sector. Today, we are very fortunate to have Dr. Bong with us. He is a Blue Ocean Strategy expert and will convey what steps needs to be taken to implement a Blue Ocean Strategy in this era. Also, we have two distinguished discussants, Mr. Agus Sugiarto, head of the Department of OJK Institute, and also we have Miss Angela Utama, co-founder of PT Grandana Teknologi Indonesia. Both will share their views and experiences with all of us today regarding the implementation of the Blue Ocean Strategy in the Indonesia market. I think will be conveyed by Mr. Agus, and in her business by Miss Angela. The last part I mentioned above about implementation of strategy, to my experience, will be the most challenging issue. Take into account the more specific issue related to the Indonesian market and how the Blue Ocean Strategy can come up with the solution. Ladies and gentlemen, today's book review is just the beginning of OJK program on human resources capacity building in the financial sector. I'm pleased to inform you that there will be much more programs to come, and the objective is to enhance the competency of our human resources. Finally, through this opportunity again, I would like to thank the speakers, discussants, and all participants, and of course, Ms. Monica Chua as the moderators for today's event. I hope all participants today can come up, with the fruitful discussion, so that we can get the most benefit from this event. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you very much, Ibu Nur Haida, for such a warm welcome. And let me highlight several key points. That fierce competition is making it difficult for businesses to sustain their business today. And this will, of course, affect the financial stability and economy in our country, especially when 60% of our GDP is supported by the small and medium enterprises, or SMEs, in the country. So therefore, the Blue Ocean strategy, I hope, will be beneficial for our SMEs in Indonesia. Thank you very much once again for the opening remarks, Mrs. Nuhaida. And next, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the first book reviewer that will review the book from the Financial Service Views, Mr. Agus Sugiarto, the head of OJK Institute. Please welcome very much, Mr. Agus. And before that, let me highlight again the participants for today's event. We have the academics from the academic sector of around 88 participants with around 7%, and then with the financial sector with around 25%, and OJK with around 5%, and the others with around 10%. And also, our participants come dominantly from, let me see the percentage here, 41% comes from the Jakarta, DKI Jakarta, and then followed by Jawa Barat with around 20%, and followed by also the other regions in Indonesia, including Bali, Banten, Bengkulu, and also Jawa Tengah. And next, we will welcome Mr. Agus for the book reviews from the OJK point of view. Please welcome Mr. Agus.
Terima kasih Ibu Monica Chua. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yang kami hormati Ibu Nur Haida, Wakil Ketua Dewan Komisioner Otoritas Jasa Keuangan. Yang kami hormati Bapak Imansyah, Deputi Komisioner OJK Institute dan Keuangan Digital. Yang kami hormati the Honorable Guest, Mr. Robert Bong, CEO of Blue Ocean Global Network, yang berposisi di Singapura, kemudian Ibu Angela Utama sebagai co-founder dari PT Gradana Teknologi Indonesia, dan juga Ibu Monica Cui sebagai pembawa acara. Yang kami hormati Bapak Ibu semuanya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan, salam sejahtera buat kita semua. My apologies, Dr. Bong, I would like to talk with Indonesian language, bahasa Indonesia, because all the participants are from Indonesia. So maybe you can switch to English version. Thank you. Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, buku Blue Ocean Strategy ini sangat bagus sekali ya. Buku ini sangat bagus walaupun buku lama. Tapi implementasinya baru dipakai sekarang ini kebanyakan. Kalau kita melihat bagaimana sih filosofi mendalam daripada Blue Ocean Strategy ini, bisa kita lihat di halaman berikutnya. Mungkin Bapak Ibu bisa melihat pada saat cerita lama dulu ya, waktu kita sekolah, ada cerita mengenai pertempuran antara David dan Goliat ya. Bagaimana David ini seorang kecil, seorang yang bertubuh kecil, tidak punya modal apa-apa, senjatanya juga sederhana, tapi mampu mengalahkan seorang yang tinggi besar, tingginya sekitar 3 meter, yang disebut dengan Goliat, yang punya alat perang cukup bagus, ya, punya senjata cukup bagus, tapi bisa dikalahkan oleh seseorang yang tanpa memiliki modal yang cukup, kemampuan yang cukup. Inilah kehebatan daripada cerita daripada David and Goliath. Tentunya kami ingin mengingatkan filosofi daripada buku Blue Ocean Strategy ini kira-kira mirip-mirip seperti ini ya. Ini pandangan kami sebagai presentator. Nah, apa sih itu buku Blue Ocean Strategy ini menurut kami? Kita bisa melihat di halaman berikutnya ya. Di dalam buku ini memang ada 2 bagian ya. Pertama kita bicara Red Ocean Strategy, yang kedua kita bicara Blue Ocean Strategy di sini. Kalau kita bicara Red Ocean ini, business as usual seperti sekarang ini. Kalau kita ingin mendirikan bank, misalnya kita akan berkompetisi dengan bank-bank yang sudah eksis. Begitu juga kalau kita ini ingin mendirikan perusahaan asuransi dengan cara-cara yang seperti biasa, tentunya kita akan bersaing ketat. Apakah kita mungkin bersaing dengan para pelaku usaha yang sudah eksis di lapangan? Kalau kita ingin mendirikan supermarket, tentunya kita perlu modal besar. Kita ingin mendirikan maskapai penerbangan atau usaha transportasi, tentunya memerlukan modal yang besar. Artinya itu semua bisnis as usual kalau kita menggunakan red ocean strategy. Artinya kita harus bersaing di pasar yang sudah ada, yang sudah eksis. Ya. Bagaimana beratnya kita nanti bisa bersaing? Jangan-jangan kita tidak berusia panjang. Mungkin setelah setahun, 2 tahun berdiri, kita akan tutup. Kita bisa melihat kenyataan sekarang ini, banyak usaha-usaha, misalnya di usaha kuliner, makanan dan minuman misalnya, di industri mamin, kuliner. Mungkin tidak perlu berusia setahun, 2 tahun, mungkin 3 bulan, 6 bulan terus tutup. Ya, karena dia tidak bisa mengalahkan pasar, tidak bisa bersaing dengan kompetitor yang sudah ada. Ya. Jadi mereka hanya mengandalkan persaingan di bisnis yang sudah ada dengan cara-cara yang tradisional. Nah, menariknya dalam buku Blue Ocean Strategy ini, kita tidak perlu lagi bersaing di pasar yang sudah ada sekarang. Justru kita didorong, ya, dimotivasi, bagaimana kita membentuk pasar baru, pasar yang belum pernah digarap oleh orang lain, dan juga mungkin pasar yang belum pernah ada kompetitornya di sini. Jadi, Blue Ocean Strategy ini memberikan ilham kepada kita bahwa kompetisi dengan existing player, dengan pelaku pasar yang sudah ada, itu menjadi tidak relevan lagi, gitu ya. Bukan suatu persoalan lagi. Ya. Karena apa? Kita menciptakan pasar baru, kita menciptakan demand baru. Disinilah kita melakukan breaking daripada value cost trade-off, ya. Jadi bagaimana kita membuat suatu produk yang bagus, ya, memberikan value yang tinggi terhadap produk kita dengan cost yang serendah-rendahnya. Jadi di sini bukan lagi terjadi trade-off, tapi kita menggunakan kedua value produk yang bagus dengan value yang tinggi dengan biaya yang sangat rendah. Ini yang kita banggakan di dalam buku ini. Karena saya sangat tertarik dengan Blue Ocean Strategy ini, ya, dan sudah saya baca mulai tahun 2017 yang lalu, ya. Dan mohon maaf kalau pada hari ini Ibu Waka, Pak Imansa maupun Dr. Robert Bong, saya menggunakan baju biru sebagai contoh bahwa Blue Ocean Strategy juga meresap di dalam kehidupan saya, gitu ya. Jadi kalau kita melihat warna biru itu selalu terilhami dengan Blue Ocean Strategy. Jadi mungkin jarang sekali, ya, kita menggunakan baju warna merah, ya, kecuali dalam hal-hal tertentu. Baik, kita ke halaman berikutnya. Kekuatan apa yang disimpan di dalam Blue Ocean Strategy ini? Ini buat kami sangat menarik, ya. Ada beberapa poin penting yang menjadi powerful tool daripada Blue Ocean Strategy ini. Pertama, Blue Ocean ini memberikan inspirasi kepada banyak orang, ya. Kita bisa melihat sekarang ini anak-anak muda, walaupun modalnya cekak, ya, tidak punya pengalaman di financial sector, tapi dia bisa eksis dan bahkan mengalahkan raksasa-raksasa sudah eksis di pasar. Yang kedua, kita terdorong untuk menciptakan demand baru maupun pasar baru yang belum pernah ada sebelumnya. Dengan menggunakan sumber daya yang minimum, dengan memanfaatkan modal yang cukup rendah, tidak perlu tinggi, dan mungkin belum ada kompetitornya sama sekali. Lanjut. Nah, di sini kita bisa melihat bahwa saya ingin memberikan contoh bagaimana Blue Ocean Strategy ini bisa memberikan ilham, inspirasi, motivasi, mendorong orang-orang untuk berkreasi lebih lanjut, ya. Sebagai contoh adalah kasusnya Gojek di sini. Kita bisa melihat Gojek ini sekarang kurang lebih ada sekitar 2 juta mitra pengemudi yang ada di seluruh Indonesia. Begitu banyaknya mitra pengemudi yang berjalan dengan Gojek, yang bergabung dengan Gojek ini tentunya ada berbagai macam alasan, ya. Mungkin kita bisa melihat bagaimana pertumbuhan Gojek ini sangat besar sekali, dan Gojek adalah salah satu contoh sukses daripada Blue Ocean Strategy yang bisa kita lihat sehari-hari. Lanjut. Kenapa Gojek ini bisa sukses, ya? Pertama, dia memberikan layanan transportasi yang cepat, ya. Bisa menerobos berbagai macam kemacetan lalu lintas, kemudian waktu tunggunya juga terlalu lama. Bahkan Gojek ini kadang-kadang ada di depan rumah kita atau di pojokan rumah kita, di ujung jalan dan segala macam. harganya pun juga transparan ya. Jadi tidak lagi ada harga-harga yang bersifat tersembunyi atau hidden cost, semua harganya juga transparan. Kemudian posisi pengemudinya juga bisa di-trace, bisa diketahui sekarang berada di mana, berapa menit lagi sampai ke rumah kita, dan kita bisa memanggil Gojek setiap saat tanpa ada ketakutan bahwa kita tidak dapat layanan. Nah, ini salah satu aspek daripada salah satu kesuksesan Gojek dalam konteks Blue Ocean Strategy. Kalau kita lihat di halaman berikutnya, Gojek ini juga mampu menciptakan pasar baru ya, new market atau demand baru ya. Artinya Gojek lahir tidak mau bersaing dengan perusahaan transportasi yang sudah ada. Gojek tidak mau bertarung dengan misalnya perusahaan taksi Bluebird, Kosti, atau Express ya. Tapi dia mencari sesuatu yang belum diciptakan orang lain. Di sini salah satu kehebatan dari aplikasi Blue Ocean Strategy yang dilakukan oleh para founder maupun pendiri daripada Gojek ya. Bahkan sekarang Gojek sudah menjadi super apps yang memiliki berbagai macam aplikasi yang semuanya terkait dengan lifestyle kita. Ibaratnya dari sejak kita bangun tidur sampai kita mau tidur, mungkin kita akan menggunakan semua jasa daripada Gojek ya. Pesan makanan, untuk sarapan, ya, berangkat ke kantor, pesan mobil, ya, sampai di kantor pun pesan makan siang, dan seterusnya, dan seterusnya. Lanjut. Nah, kenapa kami katakan bahwa Blue Ocean Strategy itu bisa muncul dengan lower capital ya. Tadi seperti cerita dalam konteks David dan Goliath ya. David bertarung dengan Goliath, seorang raksasa. Itu dia tidak memiliki pengalaman dan tidak memiliki modal yang begitu besar ya. Nah, di sini, kalau seandainya tadi Gojek itu sekarang terdiri memiliki mitra pengemudi sekitar 2 juta orang, ya, bagaimana dia bisa memanfaatkan ini sebagai suatu keunggulan dibandingkan para kompetitor lainnya. Nah, kita melihat di sini bahwa dengan 2 juta mitra pengemudi yang berada di luar area Gojek sebagai mitra, bukan sebagai pegawai, ya, tentunya Gojek tidak perlu mendirikan properti yang banyak. Dia tidak perlu garasi untuk memarkir sepeda motornya. Dia tidak perlu lagi service center. Artinya apa? Kalau Gojek tadi itu, jangankan 2 juta pengemudi ya, katakanlah di salah satu kota di Jakarta misalnya, mitra pengemudinya ada 100.000. Bayangkan, bagaimana kita membuat gedung bisa memarkir 100.000 sepeda motor. Bagaimana service centernya? Setiap hari pasti ada yang diservis. Bagaimana persediaan oli, bagaimana persediaan suku cadang, dan sebagainya. Kemudian apabila kita bersaing dengan perusahaan yang eksis dengan menggunakan Red Ocean Strategy, tentunya kita harus membeli kendaraan. Ya. Kalau kita bersaing dengan mereka dengan cara Red Ocean Strategy, ya, bersaing dengan kompetitor yang sudah ada, dengan perusahaan taksi Bluebird misalnya, kita harus membeli banyak mobil. Nah, di sini Gojek sangat pandai sekali ya. Dia tidak membeli kendaraan, tidak membeli properti, ya, dia memanfaatkan orang lain yang memiliki used resources atau unused resources ya, yang bisa digunakan sebagai partner. Disinilah kehebatan daripada Blue Ocean Strategy di sini. Bagaimana dia menggunakan orang-orang yang memiliki kendaraan atau mobil ya, bisa menjadi partner mereka. Bayangkan saja Ibu Bapak, kalau satu sepeda motor itu harganya 10 juta. Kalau kita harus membeli 10 sepeda motor, itu perlu uang 100 juta. Kalau kita ingin memiliki 100 sepeda motor, berarti kita harus menyediakan uang 1 miliar. Kalau kita menyediakan 10.000 sepeda motor, kita perlu uang 1 triliun. Betapa besarnya modal yang kita perlukan. Bayangkan saja saat ini kalau ada 2 juta pengemudi, dan itu harus dibeli semua, itu luar biasa. Begitu juga dengan biaya asuransi. Katakanlah satu sepeda motor diasuransikan 100.000. Berapa banyak uang asuransi yang harus kita habiskan untuk memberikan perlindungan terhadap pengemudi maupun sepeda motornya. Ini adalah contoh-contoh bagaimana Blue Ocean itu bisa menjadi suatu terobosan buat kita di dalam bidang apapun yang bisa kita manfaatkan buat masa depan kita. Boleh kita lanjutkan? Tadi kami katakan bahwa dengan Blue Ocean Strategy ini kita break value cost trade-off. Artinya apa? Kita ingin membuat suatu produk yang sangat berkualitas, produk premium kalau bisa, ya, kita ingin memberikan value yang sebesar-besarnya kepada customer, namun dengan cost yang begitu rendah. Nah, disinilah kita bisa menekan cost itu melalui minimum resources ya. Kita tidak perlu punya ratusan atau ribuan employees ya, tapi cukup beberapa orang aja. Begitu juga kita dengan menggunakan profit sharing system, sehingga kita juga bisa menghemat cost kita dalam konteks operational cost dan segala macam. Lanjut. Tadi kami katakan bahwa Gojek adalah salah satu pionir yang menggunakan Blue Ocean Strategy dalam memasuki pasar baru di dunia transportasi di Indonesia. Dalam konteks pasar ini belum ada, dia ciptakan sendiri. Nah, setelah Gojek masuk, ternyata banyak kompetitor baru yang masuk. Apa itu yang disebut dengan Grab, apa itu yang disebut dengan Maxim, ada Anterin, ada Cyberjack, dan mungkin banyak lagi yang kecil-kecil yang tidak kami tulis di sini. Nah, Gojek masuk ke pasar menggunakan strategi Blue Ocean. Tapi sebaliknya, mereka-mereka yang masuk kemudian, yang meniru Gojek, itu tentunya menggunakan Red Ocean Strategy. Kenapa? Pasar itu sudah dikuasai oleh Gojek, sudah dibuat oleh Gojek. Mereka adalah pendatang kedua yang masuk dalam pasar ini, tentunya mereka akan menggunakan Red Ocean Strategy. Mereka tentunya akan berdarah-darah bersaing dengan Gojek. Kita bisa melihat selanjutnya di halaman berikutnya, bagi mereka yang masuk dengan menggunakan Red Ocean Strategy, tentunya perjuangan juga sangat berat. Ya. Karena apa? Kalau mereka tidak bisa memecahkan dan mencari suatu solusi dan mencari inovasi yang lebih baik, tentunya mereka akan sulit bersaing. Jadi, kami ingin memberikan ilham kepada Bapak Ibu semua di dalam buku ini, bagaimana kita bisa melihat apakah kita ini mau berusaha dengan menggunakan Red Ocean Strategy, ataukah kita ingin berusaha menggunakan Blue Ocean Strategy. Di halaman terakhir, kami ingin menyajikan bagaimana suksesnya Blue Ocean Strategy dalam konteks Gojek. Ya. Kami ingin membandingkan di sini ya. Ada Garuda Indonesia. Perusahaan Garuda Indonesia ini sudah berdiri sejak tahun 1949. Artinya sekarang ini usia Garuda adalah 73 tahun. 73 tahun ibaratnya seperti seorang kakek ya, atau nenek 73 tahun. Ternyata valuasi daripada perusahaan Garuda itu hanya sekitar 13 triliun pada tahun 2019. Kemudian kita juga bandingkan dengan perusahaan transportasi lain yang sudah eksis di Indonesia dan menerima pasar di Indonesia, yaitu perusahaan taksi Bluebird. Bluebird berdiri tahun 1972. Kurang lebih sekarang ini usianya adalah sekitar 51 tahun, setengah abad. Tapi nilai valuasinya baru 3,72 triliun. Sebaliknya Gojek yang baru berusia 12 tahun, ya ibaratnya masih anak kecil, baru anak lulusan SD atau masuk SMP ini, justru valuasinya sudah mencapai 143 triliun. Inilah salah satu kehebatan dari Blue Ocean Strategy. Bagaimana kita bisa menciptakan pasar baru, membuat permintaan baru, membuat inovasi, sesuatu yang belum ada menjadi ada, dan memberikan manfaat yang sebesar-besarnya kurang banyak sehingga bisa dibeli oleh masyarakat. Sekali lagi kami ingin memberikan apresiasi kepada pengarang buku ini ya, beliau berdua ya, Renée dan juga Chan Kim ya, yang dengan otak yang brilian bisa membuat buku ini, bisa menjadi cerita ini menjadi ilham bagi semua orang. Dan tentunya sebagai perwakilan dari Blue Ocean Global Network, Dr. Robert Bong, kami juga terima kasih dan I pay respect to this book. Dan one of my respect to this book is now I'm wearing the blue shirt as part of the Blue Ocean Strategy. Sekali lagi Bapak Ibu, terima kasih dan mohon maaf kalau ada kekurangan. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agus Sugiarto, for such an enlightening review. And that's a very good case study here. Gojek, our decacorn with over the valuation of $10 billion. Thank you very much once again, Mr. Agus. And next, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the second book reviewer that will also review the book from a business actor views, Mrs. Angela Utama, the co-founder of PT Gradana Technology. And before that, let me read out a brief CV of Mrs. Angela. Mrs. Angela is the co-founder of PT Granada Technology Indonesia from 2016. Previously, she was the division head at PT Bumi Serpong Damai Tbk or Sinar Maslan from 2012 to 2019. And And Mrs. Angela studied at the San Jose State University in the USA with a Bachelor of Science, Business Administration with concentration in international business. Therefore, we are very fortunate today to have Mrs. Angela on our webinar. The stage is yours, Mrs. Angela.
Thank you, Monica. Very good morning to all of you. Thank you for OJK Institute for inviting me in this workshop. A very special greeting to Ibu Nurhaida, Bapak Irmansyah, Dr. Robert Bong, and Bapak Agus Sugiyato. It is an honor and pleasure for me to be able to share the stage, well, actually rather the screen due to the pandemic. And in this opportunity, what I would like to share is more like the point of view from my own experience, right? Running a business, a startup called Gradana. But other than that, what I wanted to enlighten and open up for everyone that, I also had the opportunity back when I was still working as a professional and through a in-depth training program on Blue Ocean strategy back in maybe 2013 and 2015. So my sharing session will be a combination of both, like how the application kind of shaped me to choose, to go into become a co-founder in a P2P lending from someone who has a property background. And also that I wanted to share with you that, through the exercises that I had back then, that it was actually possible for us to identify some innovation or process improvement in existing business and organization. Okay, so maybe I will start with the general concept. I think to me, what the main thing about Blue Ocean is basically about differentiation. How your product is different and why the customer should go to you. If everyone is offering the same thing, then it makes it a price war, right? Then otherwise the customer will choose who offers the cheapest price and things like that. And this is actually the price war is what's causing the red ocean. People kill over each other. And it's a win for the customer, but it's literally bleeding among for the businesses. So that's why I think it's the concept, it's called the red ocean. I think what's most important is, for us as businesses to be able to do a bit of what we call a value creation or value innovation. So what do you mean by value? I think in English, it's basically, the benefit that you give to the customers. It needs to outweigh the costs that they pay for the services or the goods. So the plus point is what's called the value. So I think that's one aspect that I wanted to convey. So I think, about the price war part, maybe in the conventional sense, I think, for all of us in Indonesia, we're quite familiar, with the two mini marts, right? There's always the Indomaret versus Alfamart, right? And then I think now with the, with the pandemic, everyone is start doing online shopping. And the online shopping it's more of a plus for us as a customer. And it's actually definitely making a more cutthroat competition among all the retail players, especially. Because, it's very easy for us as a customer to go online, to do through Google Shopping, search the item that you want, and then voila, all the prices will come up from the different platforms. And you basically, can choose, which platform offers the cheapest price, right? So it's also interesting that Ibu Nurhaida just now mentioned that it is actually becoming more relevant and the world is getting more competitive due to this pandemic because things are more difficult. And interestingly, as one of my mentor mentioned in LinkedIn when I shared about this Blue Ocean strategy session, one of my mentors actually commented that the ocean level is rising even higher. Due to the global warming also, right? With the rising ocean, it makes the waves even harder. And it's basically more difficult for companies or businesses just trying to float and to survive. Okay. Then I think it comes to the next session. Then maybe you think that it would be easier if you're a new company or a new business wanting to start a product or services from zero because you can define what you wanted to do. And it's a bit more difficult if you're an existing businesses. Well, I wouldn't deny that. In my own experience, starting a company like in the case of Gradana, there's two aspects of Blue Ocean actually that is relevant there. First of all, for those who might not be familiar, the company that I co-founded, it's a license, OJK license P2P lending, but we focus more on property-related financing. So peer-to-peer lending itself, I don't know how familiar you are with the concept, but it is actually also a bit of a blue ocean strategy. Because when you think about financial institutions or financial model, you kind of think about, banks, multi-finance, or BPR as typical traditional financial institutions in Indonesia. And it's more about, pretty much, requiring big capital, a lot of resources, asset control, and things like that. And for the peer-to-peer lending, so basically it connects, as a platform, what we do is we do the loan underwriting about, from the potential borrower pools. But the fund itself actually comes from another set of users called lenders who wanted to basically get financial gains or yields, from placing it into this kind of amount, right? So it's a bit like Gojek in a sense, where there is a market orchestration, but for them it's drivers. But for P2P lending, it's about matching the supply and demand. People who need financial products, it is called the borrowers, and people who are prepared to do an alternative investment through a lending mechanisms, and they become the lenders, right? So for me to share a bit that, maybe for the case of Radana, we choose to do, as I mentioned earlier, the property related financing or housing, right? Because at that time, it's more like, one of the concepts that I did during the workshop is actually we have to be able to identify the customer's pain points. And the customer pain points in property or housing, there is two types of customers. First is the people who wanted to buy or need the space or to rent or to renovate. It's the affordability issue. So there is that point of, having it to be a more accessible and affordable product. And then there's also another set of customer who is, let's say, the investors, right? So they used to like to invest in property because they thought that it is something that is solid, something that is yield, something that is clear. But basically, times change at that time. And I think, what triggered my idea when I wanted to do this P2P lending thing back in 2016, the property market started slowing down. So at that time, we did a survey in the previous company that I used to work for. Who is our customer? Actually, about 60% of them are end users, meaning people who 60% of them are investors, meaning people who invest in property. And only 40% who bought the property, it's end user, meaning people who wanted to use the property for their own use. And this is puzzling, right? So it's like, why this is the case? It shouldn't be the other way around. It should be more users instead of the investors. So when we dig further, both sides complain. The borrower complained like, well, I mean, everyone, all of us, we wanted to get a house. We wanted to get or rent our own decent apartment or housing or renovate a nice house, but it's so expensive. We try to save up for down payments, but before we are able to save it up, the house price keeps increasing. So that's one side of the pain point. Another side of the pain point, it's those people who like to invest. Their complaint was like, it's getting harder to try to sell property. And if I wanted to sell it, there is no immediate buyer. Or if I wanted to rent it out, it's not guaranteed that I will get a tenant right away who will pay for the rental. And then, of course, there's, upholding costs such as, I have to pay the annual PBB. I have to basically, pay service charge if let's say, you invest in an apartment and things like that. So these are additional holding costs, which is their pain points, right? So when I think about, this, I learned about the P2P lending structure, which is at that time, in 2017, the new regulation is being issued, right? And I take a look at the framework. And well, I think this is a framework that we can use, to apply and solve this problem, right? Because also, with affordability and investability, it's definitely we need a financial product. But I am a startup. If I don't do it in the P2P lending model, then it have to become a multi-finance or something like that. It requires bigger amount of capital, and I think it's also will be slower to execute. As mentioned earlier by the presentation of Pak Agus, if you are a new player, you try to compete in the existing space, it will be tougher for you, right? So, but basically, like the purpose is basically by identifying or solving the problems, identifying the existing regulations, and because if you wanted to operate in a financial sector, you wanted to be sure that it is clearly regulated. Otherwise, people will lose their trust. Why should we deal with you and things like that, right? And then at the same time, also another pain point that we are solving is actually we are working with other property stakeholders, such as property developers, such as property agents, because everybody has a pain point. Oh, it's difficult for me to sell. When they wanted to buy, they still wait and things like that. So by working with everyone as part of our ecosystems, and then we can embrace it through the P2P lending model. But I basically, another that basically what the point of view that I wanted to enhance, right? Be aware of the problem, be aware of the solution, that it may not be conventional, but definitely the background is relevant but again, I choose to see it in a red ocean way. Somebody with a property background like me would probably typically then come into a startup or a businesses that it's more traditional, like becoming a developer or becoming a property agent. But when I identify this problem, I realized that there is a blue ocean space, which is using the P2P structure and solving the problems related to property financing through the blue ocean way. Next part of the my sharing would be as I mentioned earlier, that blue ocean strategy is not only relevant for new business ideas, but it can also be implemented to existing business or organization, but with a more creative approach. So I wanted to share the experience that I had during the workshop. So at that time, we have to basically do a case study based on celebrity fitness and fitness first. I think this is two big gyms that everyone is familiar with, right? And it's kind of head to head and very ocean with each other. And at that time, we have to pitch on the fitness first side on how to make it into a blue ocean space and still not do a red ocean strategy direct head to head with celebrity fitness. So when we did the exercise, definitely, one of the easiest ways is to identify the pain points, right? So the identify, and of course, another methodology is to identify the market. I think more of this will be perhaps explained in Dr. Robert Wong's presentation later on. Who is the market? We have to realize those 2 points. But at that time, we choose to focus more on the pain point. At that time, when you wanted to go to the gym, right? Oftentimes, it's very sporadic. You come in there, you don't get classes or it gets overbooked and things like that. But then we innovate how to make this pain point of overbooking or annoying, when we go to classes, but we cannot get the classes and things like that. So we come up with the solution of doing online booking. But remember, this back in 2013 and 2015, it is not as normal as now to do online bookings. So that it is solve the pain points for people or the market that we wanted to focus, which is more premium, because fitness first is more premium than celebrity fitness. Your membership fee is more expensive. We're focusing and giving value for people who value their time, right? Because time is money, and they don't want to be coming there and be disappointed. And so that they wanted to be sure that when they go to fitness first, they do the reservation, they get the classes that they want, maybe for the yoga or maybe for the Pilates and whatever it is, and they won't get disappointed. So that becomes the value proposition and one of the, based on the exercise that we did and the solution for fitness first. And then maybe, some random thoughts that come up when I was asked to share for this session, right? And I think maybe you will also come up with more ideas after you hear the presentation from Dr. Bong. Is that maybe related to OJK, it's perhaps that, how maybe something that may come up to your mind is how to make the supervisory effort or, regulatory or surveillance effort more efficient. And then is there a system or a form that can be developed to customize or monitor the data? And I think, so far what I've experienced also as a P2P lending company, we're also regulated in OJK under the FinTech Directory, like new innovations with things like Silaras, it's kind of like online monthly data report, and also Pusdapil, which is like a FinTech data center that takes all our data, feeds it back to OJK in real time. Is actually, I think this is like one of, I would say, the non-typical or blue ocean strategy that was already applied in OJK, because again, it's already making things easier for, and more systematic, for the OJK P2P team to do the surveillance and also to compile data, right? And again, because I work in the fintech sector, I might be biased, but as Henry Ford said, for most purposes, a man with a machine, it's better than a man without a machine. So I think, the use of technology, the use of digital innovations and things like that do actually kind of help and enable people to do blue ocean strategy easier. And then I think, I also maybe with the colleagues in IKD, the Inovasi Keuangan Digital, I think what I can say is, I think it's been great that, OJK has been open to and more inquisitive to the new business ideas offered in the fintech sectors. And, and basically adopt and try to listen and regulate. And I think as long as, the new services or goods that are being offered, it's something that solves people's pain points and offer value for the society. I think it is something that should be supported. And so far, it has been done greatly by the whole OJK team. So last but not least, before I pass the mic back to Ms. Monica Chua and also Dr. Robert Bong for the more comprehensive presentations, what I wanted to say is, with the Blue Ocean strategy, the possibilities are limitless. Explore, and hopefully you will get some creative new ideas and, after this session that you can apply to your existing businesses or perhaps new business ideas. So once again, thank you. And I'll pass the mic back to Ms. Monica. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Angela Utama, and we'll discuss more about this during the Q&A session later. And next, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite our speaker for today's event, Dr. Robert Bong, the Chief Executive Officer and Director of Blue Ocean Global Network. But before that, let me read out a brief CV of Dr. Bong. Dr. Bong has more than 40 years of global experience, having worked in corporate leadership positions across different countries in the USA, India, China, and the Asia-Pacific region as the Chief Executive Officer, Managing Director of a number of publicly listed companies, as well as the Vice Chancellor and also Chairman of several universities. Dr. Bong is also the Chief Designer of the Blue Ocean Academy and the Principal Consultant of Blue Ocean Consulting, the creative engine responsible for designing and delivering advisory, consulting, and training services to the education institution, corporates, as well as the governments globally. Therefore, we are very fortunate today to have Dr. Bong on our webinar. Dr. Bong, please, the stage is yours.
Yeah. Very good morning. Thank you, Monica. And on behalf of Professor Chan Kin and Renée Mauborgne, we Blue Ocean thank all officials from Indonesia Financial Services Authority for giving us this opportunity to share our ideas as well as the applications we have done so far. And I also like to thank my two previous book reviewer. They have done such an excellent job that I almost don't need to do anything now. And first and last but not least, all the distinguished participants who have taken the time to come and listen and to our talk. Now, first and foremost, I'd like to first start by making this. The book actually was developed, or the concept was developed and written as a book by Professor Chan Kin and Professor Renée Mauborgne, both of which are the INSEAD professor. And they created actually two books. So that's very, very important. Number one, they first, in 2005, they studied about 130 strategic moves across 30 industries over the span of 100 years. Then they came out with this book. This is about what is Blue Ocean? Why is it that some companies are exceedingly successful? Not only exceedingly successful, they have almost monopolistic profit. So they study about 108 strategic companies, of which 15% of them were using Blue Ocean's move. The rest of them, 85% using a Red Ocean move. And the outcome is that the profit share of this 108 businesses, the profit share is all more than 2/3 belongs to the Blue Ocean move. Less than 1/3 belong to the Red Ocean move. So that was a very interesting observation. And they came up with this book along with all the concept, tools, and methodology for people to understand, to analyze what is and what is not Blue Ocean. But over the 10 years, I might also say that by 2017, they came out with the second book. The second book is Blue Ocean Shift. It's all about how do we apply Blue Ocean concept and make it successful. And if we fail, why did we fail? Now, I have the opportunity and the privilege to follow through the whole series of events over time, and part of the many implementation of Blue Ocean, some of which are successful, some of them are not successful. So today, what I'm going to do is that I would like to not talk about just what is inside the book, what is Blue Ocean, what is not Blue Ocean. I would like to take a very different approach. I say, okay, all of us here, thousands of us here on this webinar, you do like to know, right? Of course, you like to know what is a Blue Ocean. You like to know what is a key concept of Blue Ocean. So for you, enough to consider, am I in the Blue Ocean or not in the Blue Ocean? If I want to do Blue Ocean, what a key concept at least I need to think about. But more importantly, you like to know how has it been applied, or how is it being applied, or how you can apply should you want to implement Blue Ocean. So in that regard, I will work with you over the next maybe like 35 to 40 minutes. I actually like to work with you from the title of the book rather from the content of the book. But the title of the book is Blue Ocean Strategy, how to create uncontested market space and make the competition irrelevant. So this one, I will touch on how do we solve problem for the non-customer outside the industry. This is the first step. And how do we create new demands as a result of that? Because it is a new demand, therefore we have a near monopolistic new market space. And to do so, we are also able to deliver exceptional value at low cost. And as the result, making the competition irrelevant. And I will use actual example, case study, and use case that personally myself and my team has gone through over the last 10 over years. And they will touch on public sector as well as private sector. Now, that being said, let me start with the next one first. I like to make sure that we all get it right from the beginning. So while I will be talking a lot about Blue Ocean, so let's call it Blue Ocean is market creating strategy. I'm not saying that Red Ocean market competing strategy is not good. In fact, both of them are essential, equally essential for all companies, whether they are government, whether they are private sector. You need to have both competences in your organization in order to seize new opportunity and then maintain agility, velocity, and profitability. I give you an example of this. Now, if you look at it here, sometime in the last year, Apple valuation was almost $3 trillion US. Then how did Apple become $3 trillion US? You look at the chart here, they created new market space one after the other, from iPod to iPhone to iPad, and so on. But whenever they created a new market space, they're outside of the existing industry. They have monopolistic profit. They have their own revenue. They actually reshape. You look at Apple. Apple actually reshaped the music industry with the iPod, because the way in which people listen to music in the past was that you have to buy about all the songs in the CD. And then Apple was the one who said, no, you don't have to do that. You can buy one single song at a time. And by the way, you can be your own DJ. You can organize, you can shuffle, you can DJ your own song, and you can carry along with you 1,000 songs in your pocket. Smartphone. I will talk a little bit more about smartphone. The way they came out with smartphone was very different what Nokia and BlackBerry was doing it then. And because of that, they created the old, totally new apps industry. They changed publishing industry with an iPad. I remember that a lot of people was criticizing iPad when they came out with the iPad. They said netbook at that point in time was already so expensive and became so better and better. It's almost ready to replace the laptop. What is this iPad that couldn't do anything? But little did they not know that iPad wasn't created to compete with the netbook or the laptop. iPad was to revolutionize the publishing industry, the way we publish our e-material, the way we bought magazine, books, the way we read, the way we share. Completely different. Now we have social media and we have fitness industry as well. Completely reshaped that. Now, they did it because they first used Blue Ocean, which is called market creating strategy. But once the competition starts to imitate and come in, they have to stay on top. And you see that they had switched to market competing strategy very fast. Take example like iPhone. They came out with iPhone. They created a totally new market space, which I will talk about it later on. And when Samsung came in, they know exactly how to fight with Samsung. More will be that, but just want to let you know that both are equally important. Next, I also want to first clarify one point first. Value innovation. What is value innovation? What is the difference between value innovation and technology innovation? See, Blue Ocean strategy is about value innovation with equal emphasis on value and innovation, because value creation without innovation, you do not have force multiplier. You just have incremental changes with value creation. But on the other hand, if technology innovation without creating value, you are just merely a technology-led innovation. You have a leading edge technology, but no value. You may not survive. So you can see a lot of technology company, they came up with a lot of good idea, but without value to the user, and they couldn't sustain themselves. One example with the Iridium satellite phone. That was one very clear example. Now, if you look at further about this chart here, these two tubes here, they are from Novonostic. These two pen here is called the Insulin Pen. Isn't it interesting about that? In the pharmaceutical industry, when the Novonostic at that point they're creating the insulin for the diabetic patient, their customer were the pharmaceutical company, the influencer were the doctor. So what they were competing on is that, can you have a purer and purer insulin with fewer and fewer particles per micron of the volume of liquid? So that was how they benchmarked themselves, who was better at that point in time. But they completely ignored the end user, who is the diabetic patient. The diabetic patient actually didn't care much about how pure the insulin is. They care about how convenient is it for them to inject themselves with insulin, and how less scary is for them to inject the insulin for the smaller, for younger kids, patients. So when they started to shift the perspective from pharmaceutical as a customer, doctor as a influencer, to the diabetic student as a user, they say, okay, let's create this pen. The pen, you can actually preload your dosage, and when you inject it, you cannot see the needle. It's very fast. It's just go in and come out. And it is very easy. It's painless. And that's how the game changer happened. That's what I mean there. Technology innovation is about making the insulin purer and purer, and for the pharmaceutical company. Value innovation is that you create value through a pen technology. You remove the fear and the inconveniences for the end user, and you create a huge leap of value, and you don't have to continue your R&D and spend more time. So value up, cost down. Now, the question is, why are we always doing this? Why are we always competing this way? Why couldn't we just shift our perspective? The answer lies in when we went to school, when we were younger, when we went to MBA school particularly. That's what we were taught. We were taught that, well, for the conventional wisdom, the strategy options that you either have a differentiation strategy, premium product, services as premium price, like the 5-star hotel at rooftop. Or you have mass market strategy, no frills, standardized product, services, budget price. Or you have a niche market strategy. That niche means that small market, non-scalable, customized product and services, target price. You targeted to the niche price. But when you have this understanding of a strategy, that is one paradigm of the strategy, the paradigm of market competing strategy. But what about the other paradigm, the one I just shared with you? That is the one that you are able to ignore this conventional segmentation option. You are able to break the cost-value trade-off. Why can't you have premium product services at premium price? You know, when iPhone launched their product, for the first 10 years, we tracked their market share for smartphone, typically about 8% to 12% global smartphone market share. But their profit share for the whole world is around about 88% to 92% profit share. So that's one example. Why can't we have premium product at premium price? You can have that unless you know how to look for customer outside of your conventional or existing market space. And then you bring them in as your customer at that point in time. Because this customer enjoying your product, that competitor cannot follow. Just think about it. Do you think that iPhone, when they came out with a product without the keypad, when the keypad was a key competition between Nokia and BlackBerry, incidentally, Indonesia was a savior at that point in time for BlackBerry. Indonesia was the largest market for BlackBerry. You expect the two CEO from Nokia and BlackBerry to say, we now do not compete on keypad anymore. We want to totally change. We want to compete with other features of the phone. It's not easy for them to do so. But iPhone did iPhone compete with their customer or senior executive of the corporation? No. iPhone competed for new customer outside of the executive segment, youth and women. That's how it was. Now, that's interesting. Now, I want to give you another example of this. This example, we work with them very closely. It's called Citizen M Hotel. Citizen M Hotel came out with this fantastic idea that they came out with this hotel that they consistently being to have maintained more than 90% or high 90% of the occupancy rate across their chain of hotel. They came out with a game changer. They didn't follow the conventional hotel. So we work with them. We say, okay, fine. The industry find themselves extremely difficult to compete with them because to compete with Citizen M Hotel, you have to change your structure, you change your system, everything differently to compete with them. So let me give you an example. Citizen M Hotel didn't have a lobby. 5-star hotel all need a lobby. The bigger the lobby, the better it is. So when you have big lobby, you need to have big real estate. Very expensive. We have big real estate, you need to build them up, you need to fill up the room. Maintain high occupancy is become a challenge operationally. Then you need to maintain concierge services. And you need to have nice in-house restaurant. Then you have some other fitness amenities there, and you need to have a conference facility. Without all these things, you cannot become a 5-star hotel. But Citizen M actually did everything differently. So that today, this is what we talked to Michael Levy, co-founder. You can see that he actually implemented Blue Ocean at the outset. So what exactly did he do that the rest of the competition cannot follow? I will now expand for you to look at it. First and foremost, when Michael Levy started with this program and Blue Ocean, they built all the hotels. They decided that no front desk, no reception, no concierge services, no bellhop, no doormans, no full service restaurant and bar in the restaurant, in the hotel, no room service, absolutely no lobby. So without all this, they can now choose a place that is, they can choose a location with a very small footprint. And then you typically choose a location in a very busy, bustling hotel eateries, the eateries location. So can you imagine a businessman they target, or the tourists they target? They don't want to eat in the hotel. They just want to go back and sleep. So all the F&B services actually catered outside, and they reduce the room size, the room type. They know only one type of room. No deluxe, standard, no. So when they build the hotel, they build with standard prefabrication concept, and they price themselves very much closer to luxury hotel. So this is an example of you can reduce your cost, but you can price yourself not at the niche market. You can price at a typical luxury hotel market. So what did they raise? They raised a sleeping environment, large base, linens, quietness, power shower. They have free movie on demand, phone call, high-speed internet, plug and play gadgets. It choose a prime location. So you almost do not have to worry about having to eat in the hotel. But in the hotel, what do? They ask you to check in by yourself with an ambassador to help you. 1 minute check-in, and you live like a communal 24/7. So people, when businessmen they travel, sometimes can be very lonely. I travel myself. A lot of time I eat in the hotel, at the restaurant, nice restaurant, but by myself. But down here, you eat outside the restaurant, you get to meet a lot of people because they set up like a communal living environment. You can do your reading, you can do your work, just sharing the community service, everybody. And all the staff, actually, they allow them to be themselves, non-scripted. And when they build a hotel, they build all fabricated. So with this hotel, can you ask yourself, if you're a general manager of Four Seasons Hotel, or you're a general manager of Ritz-Carlton, could you now go to your board of directors and say, hey, Mr. Director and Miss Director now, can we now change our corporate strategy? We will take out all the restaurant concierge and front desk and bellhops, all these things, and we do otherwise. We move our hotel from a big footprint, big lobby, to choose somewhere in the center of the busy night spot area. It is not possible for them to do so. That's the reason why competition cannot follow them. So this is one example. Now, the next question you ask me there, how does Blue Ocean work? Where do I begin, right? You want to do, okay, that sounds fantastic, but how do I begin? So we always begin. So I hear a lot of questions before. It's like, oh, can Blue Ocean be a new startup or for a big corporate, or can the existing business become a Blue Ocean? We have done Blue Ocean for all of the above, from private to sector. Blue Ocean is about solving a problem. Now, if you solve a problem of the industry and not to solve the problem for your customer, if you solve a problem for your existing customer, you just become a better supplier. But if you understand industry problem, you solve an industry problem for the customer outside of the industry who then want to use the industry, you get two birds with one stone. You get the outside customer who never want to use the industry to use the industry. Your existing industry customer will be happy with you anyway. And when this happens, your existing industry competition cannot follow you. Example, Citizen and Motel. So this is all about. So let me show you how is it like. Now, you see, Southwest Airlines started as an intrastate airline in 1976. They basically invented the budget air industry. How did they do so? Because at that point in time in US, the airline typically adopted a spoke and hub. So Dallas, is one hub, and then Chicago is one hub, and then San Francisco is one hub. So if you want to fly from one location to the next location in US, you always have to fly to the hub first, and you change your plane, and you have to fly to the other location via the hub. So it's very inconvenient. And moreover, because of spoke and hub, the airlines typically do not fly to every city, but then left a big space. People who had to travel from within the state, from city to city. What do you have to do? You have to drive. You have to go take train. So Southwest was targeting the train and the self-drive commuters. So they came up with this idea that this is a no-frill airline, just like taking a bus or another bus, like Greyhound bus. So they were not competing with airline. Actually, they were taking the customer from bus, train, and self-drive into a new space of intrastate air travel at a budget, no frill. So first and foremost, airline could not compete with them because that's not their operating model, spoke and hub. They are going the rolling hub and call the point to point. So this is one example. So the way we solve problem, whether it's existing industry or government or new business or new startup, we always start with a problem that might already been identified but may not be defined yet. Okay, so always at the industry level. And some of the problem might not even have been identified as well, may not even be known. So that we will use our methodologies to find the unknown problem, and we solve the unknown problem at the industry level. And Blue Ocean always reframe the problem and solve them differently. So when you reframe the problem, you solve the problem not through the eyes of the existing industry user. You solve the problem through the eyes of why people do not want to fly airline from city point to point, because there isn't service for that area. So that's how you do it. So we always try to solve the problem, focusing on problem that will likely become a game changer when the outcome is created. And then we create a totally new demand and a category, a new market space. So that is the concept. Now, let's go with the real stuff and how we do it again. Now, let's talk about video game industry. Now, in the early days, the video games industry between Xbox and PlayStation. Okay, so if you look at this one, you look at the industry. What did the industry compete on? Whether it's Xbox or whether it's PlayStation, the industry competed on series of game and new releases of new series of game. They make each game more interesting, more the game plot. They have to write the game plot. Then they have to code the game plot into video rendering and to create realism. Then they have to adopt immersive technology that you can then go inside the game and play as if you are in the game. Then they allow you to personify yourself. They have a profile. The capability is there. That even you can play with multiple players in the game, same game, and the overall player experience of the game, and they create good sales and marketing channel and after sales support. This is how the industry typically compete on in a market competing strategy. But when you do that, what will happen? Your cost will go up, right? Every time you come out with a more realistic game, you have to have more technology. When you have more technology, more R&D. You have more R&D, the game became more and more sophisticated. when the game become more and more sophisticated, only young people can play, maybe up to maybe 20 plus years old. You need no entirely another, like say, older people in the market like me. I will not be able to play game. My hands will not be, fingers will be nimble enough. My brain cannot work like the millennial. So, but the cost went up. So the price went up. But are they solving the problem of the industry? No, they are not solving the problem of the industry. Look at the problem of the industry. If you look at the problem of the industry, what do the industry have the problem? Now, if you look at the player, the child, the other people like the parent, the purchaser, their grandmother, grandfather, their friend, all these things, they have this problem. They become addictive. When they become addictive, academic performance went down. They're exposed to strangers, especially now we have multimedia persona, you get wrong value system. And now you become very competitive. You actually, when you play game for long hours, you have physical and mental health problem. And you may even pick up bad habit, gambling, betting. The overall behavior change. You become aggressive. Because you play game, no? The hero kill all the monster. You just want to kill. And you become isolated from the social. You come back from school, you go straight to the game room. The parents got no time to talk to them. They have created distance, especially in Asia. You have multi-tiers, multi-generation family. The grandparents have no quality time with their grandchildren. Disconnected. So, any of the industry players try to solve this problem? No, except for one. Now, look at that. That's in Nintendo. Nintendo came out with a game that everybody can play, wholesome, educational, easy to play. Person like myself, using motion accelerometer, I can play. And the technology used here is not sophisticated. In fact, our old existing technology. The coding is not as sophisticated as those immersive games. And we solve all the problems that the industry are having. That's the reason why Nintendo is doing so well now. And they have a big market share and a huge profit for the longest time. Now, Nintendo solved the problems for the customer of the industry and also the non-customer of the industry, like the parents, grandparents, teacher even, thereby creating new demand for new market space. Now everybody can play. Totally different market space. Now I come back to the iPhone now. So when you see, I spoke a little bit about the iPhone in the beginning. So when you remember when iPhone was first came out, iPhone didn't compete with Nokia and BlackBerry. iPhone didn't even have keypad, not even 3G at that point in time when it was launched. But they captured the imagination of youth and women, and the traditional customer of the Nokia and the BlackBerry with its touchscreen, they couldn't compete. They introduced touchscreen, iTunes, apps, and the design of phone. And later on, they even created their own experience with their own Apple Store. Now, with this, actually, when iPhone was launched, it forever changed the world communication. For the first time, I remember at that point in time, was still running a telco, in North America, in Canada some more, and US. For the first time since the invention of the phone, the data traffic actually surpassed the voice traffic. I remember AT&T at that point in time offered the iPhone. The network crashed because the network is a circuit switching, not a packet switching network. So they couldn't take the data traffic. So I remember in the past you always held your phone by the ears when you talk. These days very seldom you see people hold the phone and talk. You see people use a phone using their fingers. So the whole thing has changed. They created new industry, mobile commerce. They helped to create new industry because of the capability of the phone. and also the critical mass of the phone. Social media, app store, accessory all came out. Now, the interesting thing is this, why did Nokia and BlackBerry not see that? If you will look at the history, you go and research. In 2000, 7 years before iPhone was on, they already have a colored touch screen and with a single button. This device they demonstrated. I know it because I was in the telco industry. And the device was showing the location of restaurant, playing a racing game and ordering lipstick somehow. And in the early 90s, they even came up with some a product very similar to the tablet. But because their candy bar was doing so well and the profits were so high, and they were so focused on competing with BlackBerry for the senior executive segment, the smartphone segment. And BlackBerry was very seriously competing with them. They completely lost sight of the potential customer or non-customer outside of the senior executive or corporate executive segment, which are the youth and the women. And what they want is not just reading email. They want music. They want apps. They want music and they want apps to do many, many things. So you look at a BlackBerry, okay? I remember then, okay, BlackBerry, when iPhone launched Apple launched the iPhone, BlackBerry, the senior executive CEO and the CEO, they went back after reviewing the launch. They have the famous word when they were interviewed. They say, people ask them, now what for BlackBerry? They say, we will be fine. Little did they know that, okay, they lost their entire company from controlling half the smartphone market to less than 1% in 2017. They lost 5.8 billion in 5 years. So lesson learned. Industry problem is the one you need to solve, not your customer problem. Your customer problem may not be the future problem. So now I go nearer to home. If I say in Indonesia, how do we start? Actually, Blue Ocean strategy is just a way of thinking. It is a way of thinking. It is a systematic process of creative thinking that anyone can learn and apply. Anyone. Okay? Blue Oceans is applicable as a product level. It's a strategic move. It's not a marketing strategy. It's not a product strategy. It's not a business strategy. It's a strategic move. It's a way of thinking. You can apply it at a product level, business level, company level, in the private sector, as well as in government or non-government or non-profit sector, at the agency, policy, or at the national level. I will share some of these examples. First, private sector. Private sector, Samsung becomes such electronic giants now because they implemented Blue Ocean. They actually, in the 90s, the chairman was so ashamed of their own products, so that he brought all his head of businesses around the world to look at Samsung product, all on the retail shelf, wrapped in plastic. Why were they wrapped in plastic? Because they were not sold in time. The turnover was very slow, so the retailer didn't want to collect dust and wrap them in plastic. So they all put at the corner there. So it's very demoralizing. So when the chairman came back, they no, we must adopt a Blue Ocean strategy. So they created such thing called a Value Innovation Program Center. Now the Value Innovation Program Center, they first tried to look at the flat screen TV. They realized, they studied and said, well, why do people buy TV? So at that point in time, TV was only designed for people who actually have TV or watching TV all the time. And so why do people watch TV? That was an industry focus or competition. Then they used Blue Ocean thinking, they said, oh no, in a lot of emerging economy, TV actually is a center decorative piece of the living room. So when no one is watching TV, or when friends and relatives come to your house, the first thing you want to show off is your TV set. So they have to redesign the TV, so the cathode tube into the flat screen and make it nice. It become a decorative piece as well as a TV. So with that idea, their flat screen TV shot off. Then came the flip phone. instead of making the phone so complicated with so many gadgets, so many features and functionality, why don't you just make it very simple? Just a flip. You just flip it open, you just make the call, and flip it and close it, it became a huge success. So both of which, they have high value to the user, particularly to the outside of the industry user, and low cost in production. So this was one of the example of how Samsung, those of you who like, you can go and search for the Fortune 500 magazine, you can read more in detail. Now, I want to touch on the public one, but I don't want to talk about, I just want to let you know that we were involved in the Singapore Blue Ocean journey way back, very long time ago. And the government of Singapore and the Economic Development Board actually started a transformation journey inspired by the principle of value innovation. And they set up an organization called Value Innovation Action Tank. Now, this Value Innovation Action Tank actually was the founding ministry, the 14 ministry, state board, and government-linked company became the founding members. And their mandates for us to do it is to provide a framework, set of processes, tools, and education program to enable Singapore and its enterprise to transition themselves to knowledge economy. That was very early. That was like 20 years ago. And also to serve as a repository of knowledge to enable the creation and codification, because Blue Ocean is a systematic way of thinking, is a systematic process of being creative, right? So we have a lot of tools and methodology. We codify them and then and develop the Blue Oceans or the value innovation intellectual materials. And also to act as a common strategic planning language. It's very important that, in fact, in most of our corporate consulting, one of the most beneficial feedback from most of the corporate customers, they say, whatever it is, okay, even though after the training consulting, they may not necessarily have a lot of Blue Ocean initiative, but the language stay with them forever. They now talk about non-customer value innovation. They talk about trade value cost trade-off. They talk about buyer experience cycle, pain point. They talk about all this, use this terminology, which is very useful for them in order to galvanize everybody to come together. Of course, Value Innovation Action Tank was the underlying framework for representing Singapore for the new economy called the World.Singapore. Now, what I want to share with you is when we work with the Malaysian government or public sector. So in Malaysia, the case was a very interesting case. I personally spent about more than 10 years working as a Malaysian case with the government agency there. So one of the programs I like to share with you is, across the world, a lot of countries, you have rising crime rates. When you come to globalization, urbanization, you have a lot of crime rates. And when you have a lot of crime rates, you also have overcrowded prison, and you have very high recidivism rate. Recidivism rate is that if a person goes to the prison, come out and go back to prison again, and come out and go back to prison again, called recidivism rate, repeat rate. Okay. Well, so as a result, a taxpayer of all this government and this country burdened with very high social costs, and also security of the citizen is threatened, high crime rate, right? And those who turn to the crime will eventually go into the vicious cycle of recidivism, and they cannot break out of this crime cycle. Their family suffer, everything suffer, emotional toll. So what do we do? So when the government say, okay, fine, I will work very hard to reduce the crime rate. So when you look across the world recidivism rate is 35 average. Now, country like South America, it can go as high as 65%. Okay, I think even California is 55%. Now, so the government worked very hard to bring down the petty crimes that negatively impacted public safety and their tourism industry. So when they caught all the petty crime theft, right? They have to throw them in the prison, obviously, right? So when they have to throw them in prison, we have a problem. So they didn't have enough prisons. They need 5 or 6 more prisons. Every prison needs a lot of money, multi-million money to build, dollar to build, and also you need time to build. And more importantly, when you have more prison, you throw the petty crime prisoner into the prison, it doesn't help the problem. They just go to the prison advanced school. They learn from the hardcore prisoner how to do more hardcore crime, and if they come out earlier than hardcore prisoner, they become their runner. They start to have the sales agency for the hardcore prisoner to do crime. Now, that's a problem. So they ask us, how do you solve this problem? So we look outside of the industry. Like I say, outside the industry, I say, well, the prison department needs more prison to be built. Not a good idea for all I just said already. But we look across the industry, we say, wow, the defense department seems to have a lot of idle lands and building that needed a lot of help to maintain them. They used to be maintained by about 40,000+ of the contract workers. These people already becoming my age. They do not want to maintain anymore. Their children do not want to do the same job. They want to go to city. They want to get a better job. So prison got a problem. Defense department got a problem. So what do? We do a blue ocean strategy we call the hotspot, cold spot, horse trading. You say, why not we do that? All the petty crime prisoner, send them into the prison. Send them into the military camp. Military camp are guarded by the soldiers, very safe already, right? So you don't need to do anything. There are a lot of barracks there. You bring them inside there. You bring the rehabilitation and reform officer follow them. So when they are there, we equip them with skill, economic skill. They plant chili, Sarawak pineapple, they rear fish in the Navy camp, arowana fish, and they repair military vehicles, mechanic. We work with all the Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Agriculture. Every ministry is a multi-ministry effort. So when we did that, and the reform officer also reformed them outside of the prison, away from a hardcore, and allow their family to visit them. And at the end of every month, the produce that they sell, like say for example, vegetable, pineapple, they make money. The money was shared 3 ways: prison department, retirement fund, military retirement fund, and the prisoner's family. So suddenly you see the prison has a self-esteem. Now I reform myself, I earn money, you come and my family now have more respect for me now. I want to be a better man now, and I give you money somehow. So when they come out from a prison or from an army camp, they do not want to create crime anymore. And also because they have a skill that we work with multi-ministry to feed them into the industry. Now, this is called the CRP. You know, in 35% recidivism rate is average. In 2019, the Prime Minister made a visit and announced that the recidivism rate for this program, after 39,000 prisoners went through, is 0.5%. So 35% is the average, then this is a 0.5%. So with this, many countries, governments, agencies actually came and visit this program. So moving forward, they want to put 2/3 of the prisoners through this program by 2030. And this program has got huge benefit. It's 85% cheaper to build. Just build the military camp, the barracks only, and 58% cheaper to run. But effectiveness is invaluable. I'm not able to measure. You can measure recidivism rate down from 35 to 0.5, but you cannot measure the social transformation and the individual and the family transformation that benefit from this program. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I like to summarize that. Blue Ocean strategy is a way of creative thinking through a systematic process. using proven methodology to deliver exceptional value for the customer at low cost and fast implementation. Blue Ocean strategy is equally applicable in public-private, from strategy to social economic initiative at the national level as well. Now, Blue Ocean strategy creates this new value by solving the industry problem that have not been solved or solved satisfactorily for its customer, as well as the non-customer outside of their industry. And that makes the competition irrelevant. I shall stop here for Q&A.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Bong, for such an inspiring presentation. And I think we all now have a clearer view of what is the Blue Ocean strategy and how to implement it in our market. Thank you very much, Dr. Bong. And next, ladies and gentlemen, of course, I would like to thanks to all of our speakers. And we have come to the discussion and also the question and answer session. And before we start going to the audience, I would actually like to go first, and I would like to ask this question to Dr. Bong. Dr. Bong, when the demand of our products increase and our market share increase, at some point, sooner or later, there will be imitators that will appear trying to imitate our business and also our products. So will this phenomenon also occur in this blue ocean market? And how can we make our business strategy not easy to imitate in the long term? And how do we differentiate our business?
Okay, you have a very good question. My response to this is, first and foremost, okay, a typical blue oceans, if it's a technology-driven, technology platform enabled blue ocean, typically it will take about 3 to 5 years for imitator to come in. And if it's just a service-oriented, it will take a long time, maybe about 8 years to about 12 years. That's according to a study. The question you ask yourself is, why is it so? Because I say in the beginning, everybody else competing in the industry using the conventional strategy option, differentiation or mass market, low cost, or niche market, small market. So their organization entirely operation from strategy to operations to profit and to people, they are all aligned this way. We call the value, profit, and people alignment, proposition alignment. They are all aligned this way. So for them suddenly to want to come and imitate you, they have to change their entire organization. Point in example would be, I explained to you, Citizen M Hotel, right? The whole structure and strategy of Citizen M Hotel is different from Four Seasons and Ritz-Carlton. Can you imagine Ritz-Carlton now have to tell all their operations, so let's take out our restaurant, let's take out our lobby, let's remove our concierge, let's have one standard room only. Let's change our location to some busy places rather than some serene places. No, all these things, yes, after a while people will imitate, but it will take a long time to imitate. That's point number one. Now, point number two is equally important. Blue Ocean strategy is never meant not to be imitated. Because when you create a Blue Ocean strategy, you don't do it because you want to differentiate from your existing customer. You create the Blue Ocean because you are solving an industry problem. There is a problem in the industry that is not solved or not solved satisfactorily. So once you solve the problem in the industry, the existing industry player will eventually come to you, because let's say in the industry there are 10 players. There is an industry problem, all 10 of them cannot solve satisfactorily. The moment you solve an industry problem, the 10 of you will come in. But when you are solving the industry problem, you don't solve for the 10 of them only. You solve for people outside the industry, which is a huge amount of people. So you have two birds with one stone. Example with my example will be the PlayStation and the Xbox. Industry problem, the Nintendo solved the industry problem for the existing party in the industry. Not necessarily the player, but the influencer and the purchaser of the industry, the parents or the family. But then you bring a whole different new lot of industry, they come in. So the intent was never to differentiate. When you create a blue ocean move, the intention is not, or I want to differentiate. That become a marketing strategy of ordinary or conventional strategy. My intent is to solve the industry problem for the non-user. Then the industry user become happy as well. But what is also important is that despite the fact that you solve this problem, after a while, people will say, oh, I also want to learn how to solve this problem. So when somebody wants to solve this problem, you have to be able to compete effectively. Example, iPhone versus Samsung. So what is the answer to this? The answer is that you need to have a portfolio strategy. A portfolio strategy is you need to have a portfolio of new product, a new version. Example, this Apple, from iPod to iPhone, from iPhone to iPad, iPad to iWatch. I hope I answer your questions, Monica.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bong. And next we will go to the questions from our audience. We have received a lot of questions. So let me start with the first question. And our first question today is from Alvin from BNI, the Bank Negara Indonesia. And the question is to all speakers. And the question is, to apply Blue Ocean, it is not easy due to the high degree of uncertainty, and we have not been able to read the need of targeted customers, and we have predicted instead. So what should be the basic consideration prior to entering the Blue Ocean market or using the Blue Ocean strategy? Maybe for this question, I will go to Mrs. Angela first.
Okay, thank you very much, Monica. I will answer in Bahasa. I think it will be easier. Terima kasih Pak Alvin dari BNI atas pertanyaannya. Apa yang saya mau sampaikan dulu, yang kita harus fokus tadi ya, ada konsep itu adalah si value innovation versus tech innovation nih. Jadi mungkin saya lebih pengennya tuh fokus di bagian value innovation untuk menjawab pertanyaannya Bapak. Karena pertanyaannya Bapak kan adalah ya challenge nih, gimana kalau ya mau masuk ke market baru gitu. Nah, kalau sebelum kita masuk ke sesuatu yang baru atau market yang baru, kita harus mengerti marketnya terlebih dahulu gitu, which is what the customer wants, right? Nah, gimana supaya kita bisa mengerti? Ibaratnya ya kita mesti engage mereka gitu. Apakah itu melalui survei? Apakah ketika Anda piloting tes dulu sama mereka, or misalnya juga have someone who is considered as part of that market, be part of the team gitu. Nah, mungkin kalau kasusnya BNI sendiri sebenarnya saya sudah sempat nih Pak, kalau untuk di exercise di value innovation, dan even sebenarnya itu ada aspek tech innovation-nya. Itu yang saya alamin sendiri sebenarnya, karena kebetulan kita ada kerjasama sama BNI. Dan itu untuk produk namanya RDL atau bahasa Indonesia itu singkatan dari rekening dana lender. Nah itu saya rasa adalah suatu bergerak di both value innovation and tech innovation ya, karena value innovation-nya adalah kita ini orang-orang di fintech atau perusahaan-perusahaan di fintech, kita tetap perlu infrastruktur perbankan gitu. Nah cuman perlu ada satu regulasi di OJK itu yang menyatakan kita itu tidak boleh menampung dana. Kalau ada dana di kita tuh cuma bisa 2 hari. Nah, akhirnya kan dari ada pain point tersebut yang kita harus answer, tapi perlu disupport sama perbankan nih gitu untuk support supaya transaksi ini bisa kejadian. Nah, kebenaran I guess someone in BNI's management team itu yang menangkap ada opportunity dan ada demand ini, dan di-create lah suatu produk namanya RDL, rekening dana lender, which is mirip seperti rekening dana nasabah yang biasa digunakan untuk trading saham gitu. Cuman ini khususnya untuk penampungan dana dari lender-lender yang berpartisipasi di pendanaan untuk fintech B2B gitu. Nah, jadi dan saya rasa waktu ngegodok produk tersebut ya mereka dari tim BNI pun ngedeketin di asosiasi, ya dapat feedback dari member-member asosiasi fintech B2B lending, apa sih yang dibutuhkan gitu, concernnya apa, langsung di develop. Nah, ketika itu menjawab pain points dan kebutuhan kita, itu menjadi value buat kita. Dan boleh dibilang mungkin sekarang kebanyakan fintech B2B lending menggunakan BNI ya untuk yang melakukan transaksi buat para lendernya atau si RDL ini. Jadi kalau saya bisa jawab, Pak Alvin, intinya mengerti si calon market atau pasar yang akan dimasuki tersebut, segmennya tersebut, mengerti as much as possible what is their pain points and what is their problems, dan ketika Anda bisa deliver satu solusi atau produk yang sesuai dengan apa yang mereka butuhkan, itu adalah new market yang bisa Anda menangkan. Kurang lebih seperti itu, Pak. Semoga menjawab. Terima kasih, Monica.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Angela. And for this question, I would also like to ask this to Dr. Bong regarding what are the considerations before using the Blue Ocean strategy.
Okay. Before I answer this, I want to make it one very important point. Blue Ocean implementation is always safer than other new initiative. It's always safer. Why is it always safer? Because a lot of new initiative in corporations, they are driven by R&D, driven by product design or service design. So when they do the product design and service design, they bring them to market without knowing that whether this product will be adopted, will solve any problem or not. So in other words, a lot of companies fail because they have a product that is not solving a problem or chasing a problem. Second, a lot of technology companies, they are so advanced in their technology, they came up with a product, but ahead of the time. They're ahead of the time. You look at Apple. Apple is never a first mover in the industry. They let somebody do first. Example, iPod, they let MP3 creative technology and Ericsson's and all these Sony, okay, they come out first. They look at the iPhone, they let BlackBerry and Nokia to fight first. So, but why Blue Ocean is always safer? Because we never start Blue Ocean. In my presentation, I said we always start with the problem. The problem, we always start with a known problem. It's so known, but nobody can solve or solve it satisfactorily. Or we solve an unknown problem, the problem is there. So then the next question is, how do you start? Any Blue Ocean, you don't start by saying that I want to launch a Blue Ocean idea. You always look at the industry in the corporate world. In the government, you always look at the policy. What policy works, what policy doesn't work. So for example, the government will be COVID-19 vaccination. Why is COVID-19 vaccination not effective? Why is it a lot of people are not wanting to get themselves vaccinated? That's a known problem, right? Statistically saying that's the problem. So when you go in and solve the problem in a Blue Ocean way, okay, you're not only able to bring the people who don't believe in vaccination to become vaccinating themselves, you also will discover maybe along the way you can educate the entire nation, because vaccination is not targeted at Indonesian individual, for example. A vaccination should be a message entirely to the nation. So by doing so, you solve the vaccination message to the whole nation. You get the group of people who refuse to vaccinate to come to vaccinate. So I give you two examples how Blue Ocean is being implemented. So it's always safer because you start with a problem, you know.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Bong. And next question, we have a question for Mr. Agus. And Mr. Agus, this question is from Muhammad Iqbal from...
Mohon maaf, Monica ya. Saya mau jawab tadi, pertanyaan tadi kan untuk semuanya ya. Saya minta menjawab dulu ya, yang tadi itu ya.
Okay,
tolong saya diberi kesempatan juga ya. Tadi untuk pertanyaan untuk bertiga juga ya. Saudara Monica harus perhatikan itu juga ya. Jadi pertanyaan tadi dari Pak Alvin, tadi dari Bang Benny sangat bagus sekali ya, dan saya juga ingin menjawab pertanyaan itu ya, sharing dengan yang lain-lain. Jadi buat saya Pak, di mana kita tinggal itu akan menentukan sekali Pak, apakah Blue Ocean ini bisa berjalan dengan baik atau tidak Pak. Jadi kalau Pak Alvin ini sekarang di sektor jasa keuangan, misalnya di perbankan atau asuransi ya, kita melihat starting point-nya udah bagus kalau kita membuat Blue Ocean di sektor industri jasa keuangan ya. Kita paham betul Pak, di jasa keuangan itu banyak sekali hal yang memang masih perlu dibenahi ya Pak. Misalnya kita lihat dari sisi inklusi keuangan ya. belum banyak orang yang bisa mengakses ke jasa keuangan ya. Mungkin kalau tabungan punya, tapi yang lain-lain tidak semua orang punya asuransi, tidak semua orang punya investasi dalam bentuk saham dan segala macam ya. Nah, ini kita bisa berpikir secara blue ocean ya Pak. Artinya bagaimana kita mencari solusi atau terobosan-terobosan ya yang bisa menjadi suatu keunggulan buat kita dan juga keuntungan buat masyarakat. Saya juga ingin mengomentari tadi yang disampaikan oleh Bu Angela tadi masalah regulasi. Justru dengan blue ocean strategi ini, kita berpikir secara blue ocean ini, kita berharap ya kita bisa berpikir beyond regulation. Tadi yang sudah dikatakan oleh Dr. Pong tadi, regulasi itu jangan dijadikan sebagai suatu hambatan. Kita bisa melihat pada saat lahirnya peer-to-peer lending ya, dimanapun, termasuk di Indonesia. Itu masih beyond regulation ya, beyond regulated ya. Bahkan lahirnya peer-to-peer lending maupun fintech ya, masih banyak regulator bersifat wait and see. Beberapa justru melakukan seperti sandbox regulation ya. Jadi mereka akan wait and see dulu seperti apa mau diatur. Apakah dikasih lampu merah, apakah lampu hijau, kita masih lampu kuning misalnya. Begitu juga dengan lahirnya uang aset-aset digital aset ya, seperti Bitcoin, segala macam ya. Itu memang beyond regulation dan sekarang masih banyak regulator di dunia masih bingung apakah diatur atau tidak ya. Seperti pemerintah Cina tegas melarang, pemerintah Singapura juga demikian ya, Monetary Authority of Singapore. Tapi bagaimana dengan negara-negara lain? Bahkan sekarang dengan munculnya turunan daripada aset-backed digital currencies ya, yang juga sudah terjadi di mana-mana. Kemudian juga munculnya NFTs ya, non-fungible tokens ya, yang juga begitu banyak. Ini juga tentunya semuanya bersifat blue ocean ya, yang mana kita melihat regulator tidak siap gitu kan. Jadi salah satu keunggulan kita adalah bagaimana kita bisa dengan jeli ya, berpikir secara liar, berpikir secara pragmatis, tapi harus disertai dengan tadi konsep-konsep yang disampaikan oleh Dr. Pong tadi memang perlu R&D yang kuat ya. Jadi tidak mungkin tiba-tiba kita berpikir bisa bersifat blue ocean thinking yang secara tiba-tiba ya. Tapi buat kami Pak, blue ocean ini apapun bentuknya ya, dimanapun kita bekerja, selalu bisa kita terapkan dalam kehidupan sehari-hari, termasuk di kantor kita. Bagaimana kita juga meminta staf kita atau pegawai kita juga selalu punya prinsip filosofi blue ocean ya dalam segala hal. Demikian, terima kasih Monica.
Oke, terima kasih Pak Agus. Dan juga saya setuju tuh tadi Pak Agus kan mengatakan terkait dengan NFT dan juga Metaverse yang kita ketahui ini sangat blue ocean sekali, sangat baru sekali. Juga kita masih menunggu begitu ya Pak ya terkait dengan seperti apa regulasinya. Nanti kita tunggu juga begitu regulasi dari OJK sendiri. Terima kasih Pak Agus. Dan selanjutnya, ladies and gentlemen, we have another question for Pak Agus or Mr. Agus. This question is from Muhammad Iqbal from PT Bank Ganesha. And Blue Ocean strategy has some shortcomings, including the first one is additional substantial investment and cost required, especially to do market research and marketing strategies. For example, when Gojek started its business, they were burning a lot of money because they gave a lot of discounts and bonuses to attract new customers and also new partners. And Gojek experienced losses in the beginning. And then the second one, it is difficult to find innovative and futuristic ideas. The third one, in the absence of a customer base, we need appropriate education and also marketing strategies. And last but not least, the existence of a new market will attract new competitors and defense strategy will need to be applied. Like Gojek, after Gojek was established, it didn't take long for Grab to come into the market. So the question from Muhammad is how to deal with the requirement of large investment and cost in Blue Ocean strategy. And the second one, what defense strategy should be implemented? And this question is addressed for Dr. Bong.
Okay, very good question. I did emphasize that Blue Ocean strategy is value innovation, not technology innovation. So we don't not actually advocate a lot of R&D or research in the upfront because you need to understand that you always start with a problem, right? So when you have a problem, right? So I give you an example how to solve a problem. Let's say, for example, in the finance industry, right? What is the biggest problem in the finance industry is a trade financing gap, right? You have a trade financing gap of, I cannot remember, I think it's a $1.6 billion US. I think in Asia Pac is about $800 and $900 billion. So it's a big gap. So everybody knows there's a problem. So how can you solve that? Now you have fintech, right? So how can you solve the problem using value innovation? Now, so you approach a problem this way. Number two is that, why is it I say that you do not need to spend a lot of time, a lot of money? So you need to understand the two things. Blue Ocean strategic move and your business model. Very two different things. When you have a business model that is based on platform, like Grab, like Amazon, like Facebook, they call platform business, right? Technology business. Now, platform business, by virtue of the fact that platform cannot function unless you have the critical mass on the platform. So when you want to build a platform business, you spend a lot of money upfront building the platform, attracting subscription onto the platform. That's an initial investment. After that, you monetize the initial investment, but in the process, before even finish monetizing the initial investment, your valuation of the company already is rising, like you see all the way. So that is a business model. Do not get confused with Blue Ocean strategy investing in R&D upfront to solve the problem versus a business model by itself is a platform business. You need to buy subscriber onto the platform in order to create a platform in a valuable sense for everybody. So that's how you look at it. Now, Monica, can you remind me what is the second question?
Okay, let me read out for you once again. The second question is, what defense strategy should be implemented?
What is that?
What defense strategy that should be implemented when you implement the Blue Ocean strategy?
Okay. First and foremost, if you are solving a problem in the industry, no one is solving. You don't actually adopt a defensive strategy. You actually adopt a strategy focusing on solving the industry and non-player of the industry. You do not need to defend in the beginning, but you do need to defend once you are successful, created a new market space. And that's where the Red Ocean market competing strategy comes in. However, having said that, when you look at your business model and strategy, whether it's a platform business, whether it's a service business like the hotel, you look at it a couple of things, right? You look at the entry, you look at your business model. This is a business model. You look at the entry barrier of the industry. Do you or do you not have IP that only you own? So, for example, what IP? Now, do you have algorithm? Google has algorithm, and that is only peculiar to them, and they have the IP. So that in itself, having an IP is a defensive strategy. Second, do you have a high entry barrier? Now, for example, okay, it's not easy for anyone to start a business. Let's say, for example, like Samsung. Samsung, the initial investment of a flat screen TV, you need to have the foundry and you need to have a factory that create from the cathode tube to the flat screen. That is a high investment cost. So that's an example of a high barrier. The next thing, do you have a very peculiar service model that nobody can challenge you? Now, say example, nobody can challenge you. Remember Netflix and what is that? Netflix and what is that one? Blockbuster. See, Blockbuster, the business model of Blockbuster is based on late fee. They rent out the DVD and people always return late, and their main income is the late fee. Whereas Netflix, they completely changed it. Nobody will be late because it's a subscription model. So their business model is totally different. Now, does it take a lot of money, a lot of time to create the barrier IP? No, it's just a business model, service model, delivery model is different. But because it's not the same as the inherent business model today. So that itself is a defensive strategy. So in short, in summary, Blue Ocean, you do not go for defensive strategy. Your Blue Ocean by itself, you've done well. is a defense strategy. But when you come to a point when you need to defend, when the competitor come in, please don't be shy. Use red ocean by all means.
Okay, so you're saying, Dr. Bong, that blue ocean itself is some kind of a defense strategy, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you, Dr. Bong. And about regarding this question, I would also like to ask to Mr. Agus. Pak Agus, terkait dengan hal ini kan tadi sudah dikatakan untuk menciptakan blue ocean itu seperti startup-startup yang sudah menjadi unicorn saat ini kan membutuhkan uang atau membutuhkan investasi yang sangat-sangat besar ya. Bahkan kalau kita berbicara tentang unicorn atau dekakorn kita saat ini itu kan masih yang namanya masih masuk ke dalam fase bakar uang. Nah, seperti apa nih Pak Agus melihat terkait dengan hal ini?
Saya kira tadi sudah dijawab ya, saya nggak perlu jawab lagi, Bu.
Oke, baik, gak apa-apa. Kita langsung ke pertanyaan selanjutnya saja kalau begitu. And the next question, we have a question from Danul Barinor. And this question is once again addressed to Dr. Bong. Dr. Bong, can you share any real-life industry examples of when Blue Ocean strategy implementation failed and what caused it to fail? This is very interesting.
Okay.
Now, because we know that not all blue ocean strategies succeed. Some of them also fail. So what is the reason behind this, Dr. Bong?
Now, so early in the 2000s, I believe, or late 1990s, you know, Mr. Ratan Tata, chairman of Tata Motors, he was riding home in Bangalore in his car, and in front there was a family of 5 on a scooter. Mother, father, children, all on one scooter. It was raining. He was hoping that they would not fall. Then they actually fell. But thank God, nobody injured. So he came up with this idea. He said, how could I come up with a solution to solve this problem in India? That people who cannot afford car, and then they can have a transporter to bring the family from point A to point B safely. So they went through the whole process of creating an alternative solution. It's called Tata Nano. So Tata Nano was a very, very, very interesting project that they did not build the car from taking an existing car and strip it down to a bare car. They actually built bottoms up. They say, okay, how can I make the scooter carry the whole family? So Tata Nano car actually is a motorbike engine, and it is, I don't want to go into the detail. I spent a lot of years with them. So they came out. So when they finally announced the car, I said the car had to be less than $2,000 US a car, so that people who ride scooter that can afford. So when they launched the car, there are 200,000 plus of people actually waiting for the car to be launched and order the car. But this is called value proposition. And then the second one is that how do they can make money at the 2000? They have this what's called ecosystem and target costing. So they bring everybody to come together. They say, now, can all the supplier in the car manufacturing industry, can we now all take this as a national project to make sure that we're not creating a car, we are creating a solution to solve the industry problem, the social problem. How many people, a family riding on scooter of 5 of them and can get injured at any time? So everybody chips in. So they managed to bring the cost down below the target price of $2,000 US. Now, that is called profit proposition. Now, what they failed to do is a people proposition. They actually wanted the car to be manufactured and assembled in Singhu, in this the western state of the India, okay, where it is very unionized state of union. So they did not manage the people proposition part of that. So when they brought the factory there, the farmer protested because the farmer will feel that this is taking away their land. Even though the idea was to say that we will retrain the farmer to become a factory worker for the car, but it was not well received. So there was no people proposition, number one. Number two, there was no people proposition is that when they came to marketing the car, they're supposed to market the car in a motorbike shop. So the motorbike people can go and see the car and buy the car. but it was not. It was marketed in a Jaguar showroom. You know, the poor family on a scooter or 5, they feel ashamed to go inside there. And on top of that, they marketed the car and said that this is the cheapest car in the world. Nobody wants to be seen as driving the cheapest car in the world. It's a disgrace to them. So people proposition was failed all the way. So in order for Blue Ocean to be successful, you can be very clever in coming up with innovative solution that is high value to the user, and you can come out very good operational excellence. They have profit proposition. You can bring the cost down by roping in the whole ecosystem. But you fail to communicate, you fail to share the dream and the desire, the intent. There's no people proposition. So Tata Nano was a very sad failure, one that could have transformed not only the India lower social strata of family, it will be around for the rest of the world for like emerging economies. That is one example of failure.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much, Dr. Bong. And about this question, I would also like to ask the Mrs. Angela, as an entrepreneur, have you ever failed when implementing the Blue Ocean strategy?
Okay. So first of all, Monica, my previous experience is actually as a professional before I was doing this startup, right? So I built myself professionally, in terms of a career. And then I started this startup back in 2016. So I'm not a serial entrepreneur in a sense, and I get a little bit lucky. You would say that, when I started doing my entrepreneurial efforts with Radana being the startup that I co-founded, and it is sort of started with the ideas and the identifications that I learned through the Blue Ocean strategy. So far I think it works, right? But although I think the failure, everything that you wanted to do, it's more that sometimes you have ideas, but it's all about the execution, right? So it may not necessarily it's because of the Blue Ocean strategy or the Red Oceans. It's more of because like you have plans or you have certain problems that you have to tackle, but it takes a village or it takes a teamwork to maybe solve the problem and not just by yourself. But I think that's what I can share at this point, Monica. So I mean, if the question it's more like, is it because I've been a serial entrepreneur, have I experienced, multiple failures and things like that. It's more like, well, I think, sometimes we do plan things, but it doesn't work out. But, you try it in other ways to kind of figure it out, or you change to plan B. I think that's all I can share at this point, Monica. Thank you.
Okay, so the point is to have, a backup plan or a plan
right.
B. Essentially.
Yes. I think it is valid in both, I mean, entrepreneurial thing or even in professional life, right? I mean, when we work as employees, for instance, we have KPIs, we have certain targets that we have to achieve. Maybe sometimes if you wanted to achieve that target or KPI, you're kind of lost to the normal ways of doing things, where maybe you can kind of broaden your perspective in a Blue Ocean way and look for other creative ways. Is there an untapped problem that, what my users this might be looking for, and that maybe we as a service or as a company can provide? Or is there an untapped market that could be our potential users that we haven't been looking for? So I think this is also some applications that if you wanted, to apply it as an employee of a company in reaching your KPI or certain target goals, especially if you're in business development or sales positions, perhaps, Monica.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Monica.
Yes.
May I inject one point here, which is very important? Yes, Blue Ocean is a process of iterative process, and the why I said it, you must have value, profit, and people proposition. Blue Ocean actually built execution in the strategy formulation. How did we do that? We do that by using a lot of tools and framework, and the tools and framework actually we use it for strategy fair. So every step of the process, we bring as many people as possible before it was even implemented. So we run the strategy fair. We even in Malaysia, we ran the strategy fair at the national level. All the multi-ministry and the minister, SecGen, and will attend. So it is to have a buy-in. So the whole idea of Blue Ocean strategy, building execution in strategy formulation, using tools and framework and strategy fair process, is actually to overcome potential failure and execution, what do you call that, hurdles. So in the execution hurdles, there are 4 hurdles. We always cross them. Cognitive hurdle, that means make them understand why we're doing and what is Blue Ocean. Resource hurdle. Resource hurdle is like a prison example that we swap resources to make it happen. Then we solve the next one, motivation problem. We bring in the people who have most vested interest to become the kingpin for the process. Last but not least, we always solve the political hurdle. The political hurdle, in some cases, we even involve the minister of the ministry to come and become, we call the consigliere, or in English, is sponsor of the program.
Okay, very detailed.
Excuse me, Monica, I would like to ask to Dr. Bong about the question that, in my opinion, this is discussion, Dr. Bong and Ibu Angela. I was wondering, Dr. Bong, when someone or a party create a new market, create new demand, and they are becoming the leader in the Blue Ocean market in one stage, and then after that, so many players coming in. The players, the newcomers, will be playing as a red ocean in time. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the market is no longer considered as a Blue Ocean market. Yeah, it's a red ocean market, like in the transportation, like Gojek now. Gojek is no longer a market leader, maybe in the next time. There are newcomers like Grab, Shopee Food, Antarin, etc. What do you reckon in the next stage, after they create the first Blue Ocean market, that now becoming red ocean market, what should they do to become the new market leader again? Do they need to create new demand again? Do they need to create another Blue Ocean market again? This is very interesting, because there's, the competition is never ending. Thank you, Dr. Bong.
So first and foremost, there are a lot of people who created the Blue Ocean. They are not exactly the pure Blue Ocean. That's why they can get, they invite the competition comes in before they even have a dominant or monopolistic share of the marketplace. So that is one reason. This reason is actually resolved during the process. So when you create a Blue Ocean, we do what we call a strategic alignment of the strategy. You say you look at the target price. Is this target price serving the biggest pool of non-customer, and how big is this biggest pool of non-customer? Then you create the target cost. At this target cost, can you make a profit? Then you create what we call a adoption strategy. How fast can you ramp up the market? So if you do this process correctly, and especially when these days you have this prototype and a minimum viable product process, even that easier. You do all these things. The moment you are launched, you already can grab the market very fast, because you are not solving a problem that people may not have. You are solving a very burning problem. So the moment it come up, people will get it. So that's point number one. Now, second point number two, I say that it is, once you created a Blue Ocean, you definitely will have red ocean scenario where people will come in. If your Blue Ocean inherent defensive characteristic is not there, like what I shared earlier on, a red ocean, the competitor will come in very easily. Unless your Blue Ocean is what we call a systemic change. Like Citizen M Hotel is called a systemic change. You know, in order to do a Citizen M Hotel, you have to kick up your 4-season business model. Now, if you don't have the red ocean, they'll come in. So therefore, is always remember that any organization, whether private or public, you must have the skill set as my first presentation. You must have the skill set of blue and red, market creation and market competing. The moment you have a market created for yourself, you have the first mover advantage. So you must make use of first mover advantage. Hopefully, and in most cases, a first mover advantage will bring you to become a dominant player. Most of the players in the market are dominated More than 50% of market share dominated by the first three players, and the rest of them will share the rest of half the market share. So you have first three dominant players, you have a lot of first mover advantage, you have critical mass advantage, and you fight to win the red ocean war. And use the money to fund the next blue ocean move. And you have a portfolio strategy, one move after the other move. That's how you should think about. It's never about one blue ocean and you rest and forget.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Dr. Bong, and very interesting discussion, but sadly we have limited time, so we're going to go to the last question. And this last question is addressed to all the speakers, and the question is from, let me read out the question, is from John Korampis from PT Bank Rezona Perdania, and the question is to all the speakers. From the blue ocean strategy perspective for banking industry, should we evolve by looking at the technology development or conservatively taking stages one at a time, as mentioned within the blue ocean strategy? Maybe for this, I'll go to Mrs. Angela first.
Okay. Thank you, Monica. Again, I think the question relates to the main point that again and again, Dr. Bong tried to convey. There is a difference between value innovation versus tech innovation. So I think if you're thinking of, spending a lot on digital enhancement, making better system digitalization, then maybe you are adopting towards more on the tech innovation aspect side. But again, I think the essence is a lot of people sometimes forgot. There is the value innovation. What brings value, which is in Bahasa, is translated to nilai tambah. I think the best translation would be that. Nilai tambah or apa yang bisa diberikan lebih ke customer kita. Kalau misalnya in my perspective, there is basically three things, right? Usually people pick based on the speed or the time, the pricing, or the quality. And it's very hard for you as a business or product to be able to cater all three. Speed meaning cepat, ya, cepat segera. Price mungkin, of course, everybody wants to make it cheap, right? Semurah mungkin gitu. Terus quality, everybody wants the best quality gitu. Kualitas terbaik mungkin. It's mission impossible to do all three, right? So I think you need to understand the value that your current customer or the future customer that you are targeting, and also take a look and reflect at yourself based on the current resources and capabilities you have. Where do you want to fight in this trade? At least I think you can do 2 out of 3. Definitely all 3 it's impossible. Meaning kayak murah plus kualitas bagus. It's but usually you cannot get it fast, right? Or cepat tapi kualitasnya bagus. Well, typically you have to pay premium, express service, akhirnya jadi mahal, So things like that. But if let's say in the case of fitness first that I tried to convey earlier, right? In my case study when I did back in the workshop, fitness first, it's expensive, right? But and then they choose to focus on the value in my exercise that I propose is focus on the customer who value time, right? So it's basically focusing on that, So not so much on the price aspect, but focusing more on the time aspect as the value innovation, as a solution that we can give to the market. So maybe yes, in the banking sense, if you understand the value that you're giving to the customers, I think especially from the financing perspective, because I'm also in the financing industry, right? Typically, the customer is looking for, they wanted a fast approval or they wanted cheap interest rate, right? So this is the two main things. Well, for some people, if they don't need it so urgently, then the cheaper interest rate will prevail. But for people who need the funding or financing urgently, the interest doesn't matter. I mean, if it's, yes, it's a bit higher. Of course, it's not a lot higher. As long as it is still reasonable and affordable, I'm willing to do that as long as I get the certainty that I will get the financing sooner. So that's what I can share from my end, Monica. Hope that answers.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Angela. And maybe regarding this, next I would like to go to Mr. Agus.
Terima kasih, Monica. Buat Bapak Ibu ya, ini memang Blue Ocean ini sangat menarik ya. Tapi kita memang perlu melihat juga ya, kalau kita bicara mencari celah Blue Ocean strategi di industri perbankan ini memang sesuatu pertanyaan yang dari awal saya berpikir sulit sekali ya. Saya mulai membaca buku Blue Ocean itu sekitar 4-5 tahun yang lalu. Dan saya melakukan sedikit riset mengenai digital economy itu di tahun 2017-2018. Di situ saya melihat kira-kira apa yang bisa dilakukan oleh sektor perbankan, khususnya di Indonesia dalam konteks blue ocean. Ya. Banyak permasalahan yang kita hadapi ya. Memang tadi masalah kecepatan pelayanan, kemudahan akses, dan segala macam. Ya. Tapi perbankan ini kan heavily regulated industry ya. Memang mencari celahnya agak susah ya. Jadi memang yang kita cari adalah bagaimana kita beyond the boundary ya, out of the box ya, berpikir mencari celah bagaimana kita bisa melayani orang banyak, melayani konsumen itu dengan cara-cara yang lain. Nah, ini yang perlu kita pikirkan. Saya tidak punya ide seperti itu, tapi dalam konteks metode pembelajaran, metode pencapaiannya, kita bisa berpikir mungkin ke depan kita membuka rekening itu tidak harus di bank ya, bisa lewat e-commerce, mungkin bisa lewat HP ya. Bahkan kita mungkin bisa membuka rekening di supermarket mungkin ya, secara waktu kita belanja sekalian buka supermarket gitu kan. Begitu juga kita menarik uang tidak harus di bank ya, bisa juga di tempat lain. Hal-hal inilah yang mungkin perlu menjadi pemikiran kita ke depan ya, bahwa dunia itu sudah menyatu. Ya, artinya financial sector ini sekarang sudah menjadi supermarket yang menjual segala-galanya. Begitu juga dengan e-commerce ya. Jadi kalau kita mencari ide blue ocean ini memang sangat menarik sekali ya di sektor perbankan ya. Jadi tuntutan orang itu, saya mengambil uang nggak harus ke ATM, bisa nggak saya mengambil di tempat lain selain di ATM, bisa nggak saya ngambil uang di toko gitu kan, atau di supermarket, bisa nggak saya ngambil uang di bengkel dan segala macam. Itu secara kalau itu secara konteks ya, tapi juga bisa kita memperluas lagi bagaimana melayani orang-orang di luar sana. Indonesia terdiri dari 17.000 pulau-pulau, archipelago country ya, 17.000 pulau. Bagaimana kita dengan berpikir blue ocean, dengan cara solusi blue ocean, bisa memberikan layanan keuangan kepada seluruh warga Indonesia, from west to east ya, yang terdiri dari 17.000 islands ya, 17,000 island ini. Bagaimana kita? Ini salah satu blue ocean. Saya kira pemerintah pun juga sangat berterima kasih kalau kita di industri jasa keuangan bisa memberikan kontribusi, bisa memberikan solusi bagaimana meningkatkan peran industri jasa keuangan dalam rangka memberikan kesejahteraan dan kemakmuran kepada masyarakat ya, dengan metode blue ocean ini. Demikian, Monica.
Thank you, Mr. Agus. And last but not least, Dr. Bong. Please do, Dr. Bong.
Okay, thank you. Banking industry is being disrupted by technology, but I don't see the disruption as a negative. I think it's an extremely positive thing for the banking industry, because if you understand blue ocean, it is a value you are creating, and the technology is an enabler of the value. So first, we have to create the value and use technology to force multiply. So I give you an example. Today in Indonesia, you have a supply chain situation. In Indonesia, you have supply chain. You have the enterprise customer, you have the bank, and you have the SME. Now, there is a supply chain cash crunch. Can you now find a blue ocean? We know there's a problem there. So can you use the technology when you find a blue ocean to accelerate, to create visibility, to create speed, simplicity, reduce speed, reduce risk, environmentally friendly? Can you do that? If you can do it with technology and solve the supply chain trade financing between the enterprise and the SME, you will have this blue ocean. I will tell you why you have a blue ocean. Because today, let's talk about the SME need the payment from the enterprise customer. The enterprise customer do not want to pay them on time because they operate based on how many 120 days or 180 days payment term. You have no choice. Then SME cannot go to the bank because bank cannot do factoring for them because one by one is difficult. So you will come up with a blue ocean, you can do reverse factoring based on the credit rating of the enterprise customer and use a very interesting the technology platform to lock the three-party in, visibility there, automatic approval. You have a blue ocean. Nobody can touch you. I give you a challenge. Anyone of the audience would like to do that, please look into it. That is the way you should start with blue ocean in the finance or banking industry today.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time and also your insights, Dr. Bong, Mrs. Angela, and also Mr. Agus. We do hope that our participants today get a clearer view of what is a Blue Ocean strategy and maybe implement it in their business. Thank you very much once again to Dr. Bong, Mrs. Angela, and of course, Mr. Agus. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention and enthusiasm. And before we end this discussion, let me inform you that the highest number of registrants for today's event is 2,212, and the highest number of joined Zoom participants for today is 1,602 participants. Therefore, we would like to thank you very much for your participations and of course for your time joining our webinar today. And ladies and gentlemen, we receive a lot of questions, but sadly, we cannot deliver all to our speakers today due to the limited time. And before this session ends, we will now let Mr. Imansha, the Deputy Commissioner of OJK Institute and Digital Financial, to deliver his closing remarks for this event. Please welcome Mr. Imansha.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Monica Chua. Honorable speakers, Dr. Robert Bong, CEO of Blue Ocean Global Network, as our speaker today, and also Ms. Angela Utama, co-founder of PT Gradana Technology Indonesia, and also Pak Agus Sugiarto from the head of OJK Institute as our discussions today. And surely Ms. Monica Chua, the moderator, OJK Board of Commissioners, and all of our OJK colleagues, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon as well. At first, I like to say that I really enjoy the discussions today, and allow me to extend my highest appreciation to Dr. Bong, Ms. Angela Utama, and also Pak Agus Sugiarto for sharing the insight and experience on how we can better understand the Blue Ocean strategy. I'd like when Dr. Bong conclude his presentations with the statement that the Blue Ocean strategy is a way of creative thinking through a systemic process. Understanding this thought, then there is a lot of know-how how we are implementing this concept to some showcases of real implementation works, in particular here in Indonesia. Thank you as well for your excellence moderating our webinar today. And surely I honor also the participants for your active contributions in our discussions today. Not to mention the value of the platform, but the cases of Gojek and also the P2P lending model, to some extent also mentioned by Miss Angela. And I think other possible business model of implementation of this concept, I can see that must be more benefits we can gain when we start to change our mindset and our business model from what Pak Agus Sugiarto mentions from his presentations, shifting from the Red Ocean strategy into the Blue Ocean strategy. Participants, ladies and gentlemen, as stated as well by the speaker, the failure of the company or organization in doing business is often due to the goal of trying to have a lot of profits from the market that has been created. And as the market becomes more crowded, the prospect of profit and growth will naturally decline. Then when the competitions become inclusive fierce, it is common for companies to end up the business, have to leave the market, and suffering a lot of financial losses. And that is not good for our financial sector, including also how we are retaining our financial system stability domestically here in Indonesia. So, ladies and gentlemen, to this case, I noted some essential issues that I myself might conceive from our webinar today. First, adopting the Blue Ocean strategy is very relevant to our world today when innovation is everywhere. I think it's very familiar today when we are in high frequency encountered with anything with tech attached. We may find edutechs, agri-tech, health techs, and surely the fintech itself. And second is when a competitor comes and imitates your market, you have to continue your innovations. This is indicating that innovation would stop. And with this today dynamics, how such will affect ourselves and our organizations to each of you participants in our webinar today. But for ourselves, in particular, OJK as the financial regulator, I think that is our destiny as well to start altering ourselves in a lot of areas within our organizations. Now, that's to say that similar messages convey to our stakeholders as well. I do agree with Dr. Bong mentions before that this will also depend on how is the quality of the buy-in from our top management later on. So, participants, ladies and gentlemen, before I end my remarks, having more understandings to this Blue Ocean strategy, I'm expecting that we can identify any problems and challenges facing the business today and prepare the right strategy to be carried out with innovation embedded in it so that the corporate performance can grow better and such will possibly support our economic growth in the future. Finally, again, thank you, Dr. Bong, Ibu Angela Utama. We may have further communications later on. Bapak Agus Sugiarto and also Miss Monica Chua and all participants, including my respective OJK Institute team for facilitating this webinar to possibly take place. I officially close our webinar today. Thank you so much for your attention and your contributions to our webinar today, and good afternoon. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I hand over to Miss Monica Chua. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iman Shah, for the closing remarks. And next, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to inform you that the OJK Institute has launched the OJK Institute mini site that provides easy access. Regarding what is provided on our mini site is the various information about the financial service sector, such as capacity building, competence sector, certification, and innovative, and of course, continuing research. Webinar materials are also available on the mini site, which participants can also access. And before we end this webinar today, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to inform you as well that the link for the feedback form is available on the chat feature, and it would be much appreciated if you can fill out the feedback form before this event ends. And for your information as well, materials can be downloaded at bit.ly/OJKIBOS materials. Let me repeat that once again, bit.ly/OJKIBOS materials. And ladies and gentlemen, we would like also to invite you again for the next webinar with the from OJK with the team dari Bank Hybrid menuju Bank Digital on Thursday, February 17, 2022. And distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this book review. On behalf of the Indonesia Financial Service Authority, or OJK, I would like to thank you everyone for joining today. We do hope that this event today will give us some new insights that will be beneficial to prepare ourselves for the challenges ahead and of course to boost our economy further. And we look forward to meeting you again in the next exciting webinar dari Bank Hybrid menuju Bank Digital on Thursday, 17th of February 2022. I'm Monica Chua. It has been a great pleasure moderating our event today. Thank you very much and have a very good day. Stay healthy and also stay safe.
Terima kasih, thank you very much Dr. Bong, Bu Angela, Pak Iman Syah, terima kasih banyak. Terima kasih Bu Komang.
Terima kasih Pak Agus, Pak Hikmah.
Thank you
Monica, Bu Angela,
Bu Monica Chua.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all participants. Thank you OJK team, Bu Komang. Terima kasih banyak teman-teman semua.
Terima kasih Bapak.
Sama Pak Iman Syah, a pleasure Pak. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Angela. Kapan-kapan ngobrol, boleh?
Boleh Pak. Saya mungkin japri ke Bapak ya via chat ya Pak, nomor saya kalau boleh.
Oke.
Baik, sebentar ya
Oke,
Pak.
oke, ya. Kita perlu banyak masukan dari lapangan lah, Bu Angela. Kenapa apa sih? Karena memang namanya inovasi, modelnya macam-macam. Jadi mungkin
Ya, Pak.
perlu banyak masukan dari praktek. Ya.
Tentunya Pak.
Oke.
Dan senang banget saya dikasih kesempatan untuk bisa sharing dalam sesi ini, dan juga tentunya Pak nanti kalau kita perlu brainstorming lah ya Pak, ya sama tim
boleh.
Thank you Pak.
Siap. Thank you Bu Angela.
Nomor saya, sama email saya.
Siap.
Ya,
Oke, baik, terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak.
Ya.
Terima kasih Pak Mansa.
Terima kasih semua teman-teman, Pak Ujang, Bu Komang, Pak Agus,
Mari Pak, ya,
Pak Baruna, sama Jenny semua. Ya, hebat. Bu Riri, terima kasih banyak.
Ya.
Izin end meeting Bapak Ibu.
Ya, Mbak Intan. Thank you Mbak Intan.
Saya izin pamit dulu ya Bapak Ibu.
Terima kasih Ibu Angela.
Mohon dicatatkan
izin lift juga teman-teman.
Ya.
Oke. Terima kasih. Izin lift ya teman-teman semua. Terima kasih banyak. Selamat.
you.